Galu, a traveler from an unknown world, arrives in the My Little Pony universe, becoming a forever young colt. As a child, he is adopted by the kind-hearted Fluttershy and forms many innocent friendships with good older sisters. Of course, this does not include Luna. From the future, Luna asks, "Do you wish to be with your sister forever?" Chapter 1. Reincarnation Hall. Brain Storage Area. Special reminder, TMD, this typo review is a total idiot. It marked my text wrong, and it can't even articulate what's wrong. To avoid being banned, all characters appearing are adults, including the protagonist. Moreover, in the original story, Twilight had already started working, so she must be an adult, which means the other ponies are also adults. As for the protagonist character issues later on, name, Galu, gender, male, age, unknown years, cause of death, died from having heart removed. An ordinary white light ball in a window of the reincarnation hall spoke to the soul in front of it. "Sir, our arrangement for you is to reincarnate into an anime world, and we will erase most of your memories of your past life after you settle down here, as well as lower your psychological age to better fit the body we have matched for you." Upon hearing this, the soul seemed to solidify a bit and said, "Do you mean to let me travel to an anime world?" "Yes, and you can draw a special system here as your golden finger for reincarnation." Galu spoke to the white light ball in front of him. "Does the system need to be drawn?" Upon hearing Galu's words, the white light ball seemed to have anticipated this and replied blandly, "Yes, not only does the system need to be drawn, but the anime world you are reincarnating into also needs to be personally drawn by you, Galu." Seeing Galu's silence, the white light ball did not urge him, but quietly waited. After a long while, Galu sighed and finally spoke, "Let's draw." As soon as he finished speaking, a flash of light appeared, and a card appeared in front of him. When he clicked on the card with his fingertip, its contents appeared before his eyes. Lottery system. Completing system tasks can earn lottery draws, and drawing here has a chance to obtain various abilities, items, etc. There's nothing you can't get from the system. Well, considering I'm a non-lucky person, I guess I can only go for the big minimum. May I ask, do you want to start drawing the anime world you'll be traveling to now? Draw, Galu said without hesitation. As soon as he spoke, various anime names flashed before his eyes, and finally stopped at a title called My Little Pony. That moment, a poster featuring 6 ponies appeared before him, accompanied by fireworks exploding on both sides. "My Little Pony, huh?" Galu murmured, and before he could react, his body transformed into a large light ball, while the card turned into a smaller cube and merged into the larger light ball. Then, the large light ball that was Galu flew into an unknown device. When Galu woke up again, he felt the cold rain hitting his body. Opening his eyes, he found himself lying in the mud. His snow-white skin was covered in a lot of dirt, and on his forehead was a curved horn typical of eastern unicorns. Messy platinum mane fell to one side of his head. His pair of purple gold eyes looked around in confusion, but he stood up, feeling the strange sensations in his body, and looked down to find that what met his eyes was not the familiar human body, but the body of a young pony, and his behind was empty. Anime world? Horse body? Oh no! Have I really arrived in the My Little Pony world? Is the system there? System? Thing. The lottery system is at your service. Hearing the electronic mechanical voice in his head, Galu finally breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Does the system have a beginner's gift package?" Ding! The beginner's gift package is being distributed. Congratulations, host! You have received 10 lottery draws. Upon hearing this, Galu was not too surprised, as it was a lottery system. Haha. System. Let's start with a simple 10 draws. Ding! Host consumes lottery draws x10. Congratulations, host, you have obtained Healing Spell Gold, Magic Crystal Heart, 100 gold coins x6 white, Power of Thought. Colorful. Healing Spell. Healing spells are divided into mental healing and physical healing. Mental healing can heal psychological damage and eliminate various negative effects received mentally. Physical healing can heal physical damage and eliminate various negative effects received physically. Magic Crystal Heart. A crystal produced after the death of a world-ending monster, which can perfectly fill the host's physical deficiencies after the system erases the anomalies. 100 gold coins. Power of Thought. Concept and ability. Figure out yourself. Seeing the last description, Galu displayed a face similar to that of the subway elder. However, with his past online experience, using the power of thought was naturally simple. By the way, system, is my body created by you? Or is it a native of the My Little Pony world? Ding! The host body is made by the official. Upon hearing this, he breathed a sigh of relief. At least he didn't have to worry about exposing his identity as a traveler. At this moment, he still did not know that he would forget all of this in the future. Walking along a small path in the forest, he did not know how long it took when a small town appeared at the end of Galu's vision. He felt a surge of joy and unconsciously quickened his pace. Walking slowly along the road to the town, he soon arrived in front of a small house, pushed the door open, and poked his head inside. Thanks to the magic crystal heart, Galu had night vision, so he could easily see the things inside the small house. What met his eyes were some apples and hay. Is this a food storage place? Thinking this, Galu did not hesitate much. It was still raining outside, and he did not want to continue getting soaked. He pushed the door open, entered the small house, and found a cleaner haystack to lie down on. Galu began to sort out his current state. This magic crystal heart was continuously consuming its internal magic power, strengthening his body, and two streams of magic power were continuously merging to enhance the quality and capacity of his magic power. For what he learned from the system, if this continued, he would shatter due to the depletion of magic power in a few years. What would happen to him then? Though he did not know if he would die, he still needed to prepare since he was reborn. He could not live like before. The previous Galu was already dead, and now living was the little pony Galu. With a thought, Galu used the power of thought, immediately merging the magic crystal heart with himself completely. Thus, the originally one-sided nourishment turned into a mutually beneficial form. I wonder if, under the enhancement of this magic crystal heart, I can eventually become an alicorn. Lost in thought, Galu felt his eyelids growing heavier and unknowingly fell into a deep sleep. What he did not know was that after he completely merged with the magic crystal heart, his mane quietly began to change. In his dream, Galu sat on a patch of grass, the gentle breeze brushing against his body, making him feel very comfortable. He looked up and saw a river not far away and an alicorn by the riverbank. Wait, an alicorn? Galu stood up and walked in that direction. As he got closer, he recognized the identity of the pony Luna. No, now she should be called Nightmare Moon. And he realized that his body couldn't move at all. He could only watch as a white unicorn walked towards him. But in his perception, it felt completely different in the perception of Nightmare Moon. The other party was clearly a white unicorn foal, yet it emanated an undeniable, strong, magical fluctuation. As he approached Nightmare Moon, Gallus looked at the motionless figure of Nightmare Moon. If it weren't for the rising and falling of her chest, he would have doubted whether this was a statue placed here by someone. Chapter 2. Nightmare Moon. In that deceitful world, having lived for so long, Gallus had long since become accustomed to wearing a mask for himself. At this moment, Gallus was not as tall as Nightmare Moon's legs. He stretched out his hoof to poke at Nightmare Moon's leg and said in a childlike tone, "Big sister, why are you standing here?" When touched by Gallus, Nightmare Moon suddenly felt her body move and instinctively took a step back, looking at Gallus with a wary expression. Seeing this, Gallus cutely tilted his head and asked, "Big sister?" Staring at the innocent Gallus, a series of revenge plans against her sister arose in Nightmare Moon's mind. While thinking this, Nightmare Moon approached Gallus and spread her deep blue wings. "Little one, do you know who I am?" Hearing Nightmare Moon's question, Gallus shook his head to maintain his character. "I don't know." Looking at the adorably dazed Gallus, Nightmare Moon covered her face and thought, "How could I forget that this is just a little foal who knows nothing?" Taking a deep breath, Nightmare Moon boldly declared, "I am a very powerful alicorn, and I know many amazing spells. Now I want to take you as my student. Once you become my student, I will teach you powerful magic, and you must obey my commands. Do you agree?" Gallus showed a look of admiration, his eyes sparkling as he replied, "I do, I do, I do." Seeing Gallus's somewhat silly expression, Nightmare Moon couldn't help but think, children really are so simple-minded. With this in mind, Nightmare Moon decided to first teach Gallus how to hide and control his magic. "What is your name?" "Sister, my name is Luna." Originally, she intended to say Nightmare Moon's name, but for some reason, looking at the dazed Gallus gave her a strange feeling, and she instinctively said her original name. When she realized it, she saw Gallus looking eager. "Sister Luna, when do we start learning magic?" Nightmare Moon placed her hoof on Gallus's head and rubbed it, hoping to bridge the gap between them so that the other could better assist her in the future. "No rush. I'll first teach you how to control your magic." A few hours later, calculating the time, Nightmare Moon noted that there was less than an hour until Gallus would wake up. Not wanting to waste time, she planned to teach Gallus 1 or 2 basic spells. "Gallus, come here." Hearing the call, Gallus trotted over from the riverbank to Nightmare Moon's side. "What's wrong, Sister Luna?" Looking at the little foal who knew nothing, Nightmare Moon couldn't help but smile slightly. Even she didn't notice it. "There's still some time. I plan to teach you some basic spells." Saying this, Nightmare Moon used the levitation spell to move a stone from not far away to in front of her. After explaining the theoretical knowledge as she understood it, she let Gallus try using the levitation spell. For the first time encountering magic, Gallus visibly became excited. Mimicking how Nightmare Moon had demonstrated the spell, with his horn enveloped in platinum magic, Gallus discovered he could feel the flow of magic within him and could also see the flow of others' magic. Next, much to Nightmare Moon's astonishment. Gallus successfully levitated the stone into the air on his first try, although it was wobbling as if it would fall at any moment. However, this was enough to shock her. After all, it had taken her 2 days to learn the levitation spell. Seeing Gallus continuously outputting magic, Nightmare Moon quickly intervened. "All right, stop." At her words, Gallus instinctively ceased the flow of magic, and the stone fell from the air as he looked up at Nightmare Moon in confusion. Ahem. There's no need to maintain a failed spell. Hee. If you keep pouring magic into it, that stone will break. Thinking this to herself, she spoke again, "Try again." Gallus obediently used the levitation spell once more, and this time, the spell's effect was much better than before. Again. After practicing countless times, Nightmare Moon finally nodded in approval. "Very good. I'll teach you some other spells tomorrow night." Nightmare Moon checked the time, and before Gallus could react, she directly kicked him out of the dream. Nightmare Moon furrowed her brow but thought nothing of it, believing it was just because she had been sealed for too long. Taking a deep breath, she inhaled the scent of the sun mixed with a hint of youthful fragrance. It was this scent that quickened Gallus's brain reboot. Once he regained his senses, Gallus suddenly sat up, his mismatched eyes scanning the surroundings, which revealed a very cozy room. At first glance, one could tell this was a girl's room, especially in the little details, filled with the small thoughts belonging to a girl. Climbing down from the bed and pushing open the door, a sweet aroma wafted into Gallus's nose. "Wow, that smells great. What is that smell?" Following the direction of the scent, he went downstairs and saw several small birds perched on a shelf in midair, and a bear sprawled on the sofa. For some reason, Gallus felt no fear towards these animals. Noticing there were no animals around, Gallus took a couple of steps forward and greeted them. Excuse me. Is there a horse here?" The sudden voice attracted the attention of all the animals, and as their gazes fell on Gallus, an overwhelming fear enveloped them from within. "Arg!" Someone howled, and the animals instantly scattered, hiding or fleeing through the windows, leaving the room in chaos. Before Gallus could react, a yellow Pegasus burst out from another room. Wearing an apron and calling out in a worried voice, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Seeing the Pegasus, which was considerably larger than himself, Gallus instinctively showed a pitiful expression and said, "I'm sorry, I just wanted to greet them." Chapter 3. Fluttershy. I'm so sorry, I just wanted to greet them. Upon closer inspection, Gallus recognized the identity of the Pegasus, representing kindness, Fluttershy. She looked smaller than her original depiction, indicating that the current timeline was set earlier. Thinking this, Gallus was suddenly enveloped in a warm embrace. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't scare you, cute little one." Gallus, whose mental age was 14, felt embarrassed as he was hugged by a girl and blushed. And no, before Gallus could push Fluttershy away, his stomach protested loudly, providing a perfect excuse for his blush. Looking down, Fluttershy found it amusing to see the shy little one in her arms and gently said, "You're waking up just in time. Lunch is ready in the kitchen." "Is it okay?" Gallus asked, slightly lowering his head in an anxious tone. Seeing Gallus's cautious demeanor, Fluttershy felt even more sympathetic and gently rubbed the platinum mane atop his head, softening her voice to sound more amiable. "Of course, go ahead." "Thank you, sister." After Gallus walked into the kitchen, Fluttershy approached the brown bear that was hiding behind the sofa, with only half of its rear showing, and asked gently, "Mr. Bear, what happened to you?" Hearing Fluttershy's inquiry, the bear raised its furry head, looked around, and not seeing the little horse that scared him, replied, "Grr, grr, grr." Fluttershy instinctively retorted, "How is that possible? It is just a weak little foal." However, seeing the serious expression on the other party, Roro couldn't help but start to doubt. After a long time, she finally thought of a more moderate solution. "In that case, I'll observe for a bit. If you're really scared, you can hide in the backyard first." Saying this, Roro went to the door and opened it. And then various animals came out from different places, led by Mr. Bear. Seeing this, Roro's heart became even more suspicious. But considering that the other party was just a weak little foal, she found it inconvenient to ask directly. When she arrived at the kitchen, she saw Galu sitting at the table, stuffing his mouth with food. "It looks like you haven't eaten for a long time." Galu, with food in his mouth, looked up, and the smile on his stuffed face looked somewhat comical. "Yes, I woke up in the wild last night, and I can't remember most of the past." Worried that Galu might choke, Roro kindly poured a glass of milk and placed it on the table. "Ah, poor child, do you remember anything? Where do you live? Or what is your name?" Galu used magic to bring the glass of milk to his mouth and took a sip before saying, "Apart from some magic and special abilities, the only thing I remember is my name, Galu. Eat slowly. After you're done, I'll take you to see the mayor's wife." Perhaps fearing that Galu might misunderstand, Roro hurriedly added, I don't mean to rush you away. I just want the mayor's wife to see if she can find your family. Stopping his eating, Galu seemed to be full after just a bit of food, perhaps due to the fact that he had turned into a foal. Are you full? Thank you, sister. I am full. Looking at the little guy in front of her, who was obedient and cute, she felt he was nothing like what Mr. Bear had described. Well then. Hello, little Galu. My name is Ro-Ro. You can call me Ro-Ro Gia or Ro-Ro sister. Of course, you can continue to call me sister. Okay. You want me to call you sister no matter what, right? Although she felt a bit resentful in her heart, Galu still obediently called out, Ro-Ro sister. It must be said that sometimes having a cute little boy appearance is quite appealing. Whether it's young girls or boys, they can't help but feel a sense of affection for a cute little boy. At this moment, Ro-Ro, who was struck by this charm, felt as if she had been hit in the heart. For a moment, she didn't want to take Galu to see the mayor's wife anymore, but rather wanted to keep this cute little guy by her side. After regaining her senses, Ro-Ro shook her head and suppressed the thought that had just arisen, while also smiling in her heart. Haha, you really are a cute little guy. Even I want to keep you. So that's how it is. I found this little guy in the storage room outside, and it seems he has amnesia. So, mayor's wife, could you see if you can find this little guy's parents? Hearing this, both horses looked at Galu, who was sitting in the chair, seemingly oblivious and daydreaming. The mayor's wife, wearing glasses, picked up a camera and said, you know, Ponyville isn't very big, and every family's children see each other every day. So I think you understand well that this little guy is probably not one of our ponies. Otherwise, you wouldn't have found me here. Saying this, she took a picture of Galu and continued. Moreover, I just checked, and there haven't been any missing ponies in the past few months, so I think he might be from a very far place. Hearing this, Ro-Ro became visibly anxious. What should we do, mayor's wife? I don't have any good methods. I can only try to send his photo to several surrounding towns to see if there are any missing ponies. Well, okay. After glancing at the obedient Galu, Ro-Ro seemed to have made up her mind and said, originally, I was worried about where this little guy would go. The mayor, upon hearing this, felt a bit happy but was also worried, saying, no, Ro-Ro, don't forget, you still. Before she could finish, Ro-Ro interrupted, it's okay. I usually take care of some small animals. And I am already an adult. Please believe me, I will take good care of him, especially since Galu is very well behaved. Looking at the little pony in front of her, the mayor's wife realized that the pony was no longer the same young foal from before. Seeing that the other party insisted repeatedly, the mayor's wife felt it was inappropriate to refuse. Well, okay. But the cost of this child's living expenses will be covered by the town, so you don't have to worry about that. To this, Ro-Ro did not refuse and thanked the mayor's wife while pulling Galu along. The mayor's wife waved her hoofs, indicating that it was her duty as the mayor. Chapter 4. Galu's Daily Necessities. After bidding farewell to the mayor's wife, Ro-Ro planned to take Galu to buy the daily necessities they would need. To be honest, there wasn't much that needed to be bought. Ro-Ro's family had surplus tableware and even bedding. Not at all. Besides, buying new ones would waste a lot of money. Right? Sometimes, being good-looking really has its benefits, as it often leads to unexpected effects from certain actions. Just like now, Galu's considerate words once again struck Ro-Ro, raising her favorability to 10086. Having lived for a long time in that steel forest, being able to see such beautiful natural scenery now made Galu feel excited. Looking up at Ro-Ro, his eyes were filled with undisguised anticipation. Well, go ahead, be careful and don't get hurt. Yay. Joining in with a little pony, running down the path, sometimes smelling flowers and sometimes chasing butterflies, joyful laughter occasionally echoed along this small path. This small path, not too long nor too short, soon reached the end, and looking at the small house not far away, the playful Galu felt he still wanted more. Perhaps sensing what Galu was thinking, Ro-Ro softly said, if you haven't played enough, you can go to the backyard to play with the animals. Okay. Now that Galu had restrained his presence, he was no longer afraid of scaring the animals like before, so he readily agreed. Watching Galu enter the backyard, Ro-Ro then pushed open the door to her house and arranged the toiletries she had bought for Galu. When she entered the guest room and was about to prepare a bed for Galu, her gaze fell on the wooden bed that had recently been toppled by Mr. Bear, and she fell into deep thought. Oh, how could I forget such an important thing? She murmured, walking to the window and opening it, just in time to see Galu playing with the animals. Galu, Sister Ro-Ro, is there something wrong? Worried that Galu might run around, Ro-Ro instructed. Sister needs to go out for a bit, so you stay at home and play, okay? I understand. Saying this, Galu jumped onto Mr. Bear's fluffy belly. Roar. Seeing Galu being able to get along harmoniously with the animals, Ro-Ro felt relieved, and the things Mr. Bear had mentioned in the morning had long been thrown out of her mind. Glancing at the time, it was already past 3 o'clock, soon the sun would set. and Ro didn't plan to linger much longer. Thinking about the Apple family being a very large family, and recalling the relatives of Applejack who had come to Sweet Apple Acres to visit not long ago, Ro thought to herself. So there should be an empty bed there. I hope Applejack won't mind. It should be noted that at this time, if she went to buy a new one, it would at least take until the next day for delivery from their side. Considering this, Ro had no choice but to borrow a bed from Applejack. This wasn't because Ro didn't want Galu to sleep with her. On the contrary, compared to her irresponsible brother, this cute and obedient brother made Ro much happier. But it should be noted that in order to free up more space to take care of the little animals, Ruru sleeps on a single horse bed. It would be fine if only Ruru were sleeping there, but if Galu were to join, it would feel a bit cramped. Soon, Ruru flew to the sweet apple orchard, and from midair, she saw Applejack and Macintosh arguing about something. Oh, those apple trees are for making a few chairs, not a bed. No, that's not what you said at the time. Facing her somewhat aggressive sister, Macintosh didn't think his memory was at fault. I remember very clearly. I said to make a few chairs. Seeing his sister's face reddening from anger, this honest chestnut stallion decided to acknowledge this mistake. Okay, maybe I remembered it wrong. I'll make a few chairs tomorrow. Upon hearing her brother admit his mistake, Applejack softened her tone and said, but what do we do now? If Granny finds out we wasted apple wood, she'll definitely be furious. Hearing this, Macintosh fell into deep thought. Yes, Granny hates waste, especially wasting such fine apple wood. They didn't want to upset their elderly Granny, and Macintosh didn't want her to get upset over something so trivial. Just then, a weak voice sounded from behind them. If possible, could you sell me this bed? Ruru immediately had the urge to hide when she saw the two horses looking at her, but for some reason, the image of that white figure appeared in her mind. Encouraging herself, Ruru continued, a little horse has come to stay at home, and the bed in the guest room is broken, so. Surprised at first, Applejack quickly reacted and stepped forward to hug Ruru, smiling as she said, thank goodness, this is really a big help. Then she called out to Macintosh, Macintosh. Loaded up. Yes. At that moment, Applejack thought to herself, finally, there's a reason to explain. Although Granny hates waste, she is a kind old lady and wouldn't refuse her granddaughter helping a friend. On the way, Applejack and Ruru chatted a lot and naturally learned about Galu's situation. After hearing the story, the generous Applejack waved her hoof and immediately said that the bed would be a gift from her to Galu. This took Ruru by surprise, and she immediately shook her head like a rattle drum, wanting to take money out of her bag. But before she could open her bag, Applejack pressed her hoof down. Then, it seemed she saw a sly smile on Applejack's honest face. Hee, Ruru, this is a gift from me to Galu, and you have no right to refuse. If it weren't for the tears glistening in her eyes, this expression would be quite cool. Clearly, although her personality was somewhat like a colt, Applejack's heart was still that of a sentimental mare. Therefore, Applejack couldn't help but imagine a tragic backstory for Galu. At this moment, she felt a deep compassion for the young horse she had never met. Thinking of her own little sister who had just been born, Applejack's gaze became incredibly sincere as she looked directly at Ruru. Seeing this, Ruru sighed and didn't dwell too much on the topic. You guys are so fast. I've only changed a word, and there are already 61 requests for updates. I've looked at the previous votes again these past couple of days. It's obvious that the votes for multiple female leads are much higher than for a single female lead. But considering another group of readers who strongly demand Luna, the author decided to weigh the pros and cons and let everyone vote to choose the main female lead. Luna, Ziyue, Starlight, others. Chapter 5. The Strange Horn. Shortly after, the three horses arrived at Ruru's doorstep. With Applejack's help, Macintosh was finally able to pull the cart up to the archway at Ruru's house. Ruru. Applejack opened her mouth, but was hurriedly silenced by Ruru, who was quick on her hooves. MMM. Seeing her mouth covered, Applejack looked at Ruru in confusion. I'm really sorry, but I don't want to wake up little Galu. Following Ruru's gaze, they saw a little horse squatting at the doorstep. Its pure white body covered in a few mud spots from playing. The most eye-catching feature was its flowing platinum mane. At that moment, its eyes were tightly closed, and it was clearly fast asleep. Seeing this, Applejack blinked and signaled that she understood, and Ruru finally released her hand from covering Applejack's mouth. Just when Ruru thought they wouldn't wake Galu, the sound of chirping birds came from the windowsill. Tweet, tweet, tweet. Clearly, it was too late for Ruru to stop it. And the little Galu, who was already in light sleep, was awakened. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw his long-awaited sister Ruru. Sister Ruru. Just as Galu wanted to get up, a tingling sensation spread through his legs, and the next moment, his body uncontrollably toppled forward. Galu. Facing the ground that was getting closer, Galu instinctively closed his eyes, bracing for the pain. With a thud, he found himself falling into a warm embrace, and a familiar scent filled his nose. Sister Ruru? Galu looked up, and their faces were almost touching. Such close proximity made Galu blush, and the two rosy spots on his white skin were very obvious. Are you okay? I'm fine. Galu quickly got out of Ruru's embrace, but in his shyness, he had clearly forgotten about his numb legs, and as soon as he stood up, he swayed and was about to fall again. However, this time, perhaps because Ruru was so close, her hooves caught him, and her tone carried a hint of reproach. If your legs are numb, don't force yourself. I'll help you inside. At this moment, Applejack, who had witnessed the whole process, had already figured out the truth. I don't think Galu is trying to force himself. He is just shy. Isn't he? Shy. Applejack, don't joke. How old is Galu? Saying this, she affectionately ruffled Galu's mane, which made him feel extremely embarrassed. Sister. Seeing Galu's reaction, Ruru smiled awkwardly and apologized. I'm sorry, Galu. I'll help you rest inside. After helping Galu onto the sofa, Ruru then assisted Applejack in moving the bed. However, moving the bed actually meant she was just leading the way since Macintosh wouldn't let a frail mare move a bed. After bringing it to the second floor and pointing out Galu's room, Applejack handed over the bed-moving task entirely to Macintosh. As she turned around, she noticed Ruru frowning deeply. Ruru, is something wrong? Applejack inquired. Ruru, who had been lost in thought, was startled by the sudden voice. Oh, sorry, Applejack, what did you just say? I asked what's wrong. You look troubled. Upon hearing this, Ruru rubbed her forehead and said uncertainly, I noticed earlier that Galu's horn is bent. I only noticed it because you mentioned it. Indeed, Galu's horn is completely different from the others. Applejack tilted her head in confusion regarding something she didn't understand. In this area, we aren't too familiar either. Ruru thought for a moment and suggested, how about we go see a doctor tomorrow? Hearing this, Applejack nodded in agreement. It can only be like this. As Applejar finished speaking, a sudden thought arose in her mind. Is there a possibility that it's innate? No. Roro quickly shook her head and instinctively rebutted. This is just your guess. What if it's something that developed later and can be cured through treatment? Eventually, Roro sighed and resolutely said, let's wait until tomorrow. I'll take her to the hospital for an examination. To this, Applejar sighed and said, all right. It can only be like this for now. In the evening, Roro wanted to invite Applejar and Machuos to stay for dinner, but Machuos declined, saying it was inconvenient. Instead, Applejar unhappily agreed. Afterwards, Machuos left alone, pulling the cart while being watched by the three horses. Roro, you go help Galu make the bed first. I'll take care of dinner. Isn't that inappropriate? How can we let guests cook? Seeing this, Applejar waved her hooves and said, it's fine. If you wait until after dinner to help Galu make the bed, it will be too late. Hearing this, Roro thought carefully and nodded in agreement. All right then, thank you, Applejar. Saying this, she poked Galu, who was standing there in a daze. Oh, thank you, Sister Applejar. After rubbing Galu's head, Applejar said, Roro is my friend, and since you call me sister, that makes you my little brother. So there's no trouble at all. Galu smiled sweetly, and then pulled Roro upstairs. Hee, Galu has another sister now. To this, the two horses felt both heartache and happiness. The happiness was because they could deeply feel that Galu had already regarded them as real family. The heartache, of course, was due to the association with each other's backgrounds through Galu's words. Fill in the blanks as you wish. Watching the figures of the two horses disappear from view, Appleja's lips curled up as she thought, let you experience your sister Appleja's culinary skills today. Upstairs, Roro and Galu first went to Roro's room to grab bedding. Although Galu's room also had a cabinet for bedding, most of it was for winter use. And since it was summer, it was impossible to use those quilts. Galu, can you grab that blue pillow and the sheet next to it? As the platinum-colored magic wrapped around the pillow and sheet, Galu asked, is there anything else you need me to get? No, you can take these to your room first. Okay, since it was summer, not too many things were needed. Besides what Galu just took, she only needed to grab one more quilt to put underneath. Chapter 6. Seeking praise flying up, Roro took the clean quilt from the top of the cabinet and hugged it in her arms. Having often helped large animals with massages, carrying a quilt was naturally not a problem for her. Roro lightly flapped her wings to hover in midair and flew towards Galu's room. After placing the quilt on the bed, Roro let out a breath and was just about to unfold the quilt when she saw it being wrapped in platinum-colored magic. And then the quilt slowly flattened on the bed. After completing all this, Galu tilted her head slightly, looking like she was waiting for praise. Clap, clap, clap. Roro enthusiastically clapped her hooves and said, Galu is amazing. Receiving praise from Roro made Galu a bit giddy. and she used her magic to lift the sheet that was placed aside again. But this time Ro stopped her. "Oh right, I suddenly remembered I forgot to get the blanket. Could you help your sister get it?" Hearing this, Galu's fluffy ears perked up with joy. "Okay, but where did you put the blanket?" "It's under the clothes in my room, on the second shelf, the light blue blanket with little rabbits on it." "Got it." I promised to complete the task. As soon as she finished speaking, Galu dashed out, heading straight for Ro's room. Seeing this, Ro smiled helplessly and carefully spread out the sheet. "Sister Ro," Galu placed the blanket on the bed and could come down. "The temperature has been really high these past few days. It's a bit stuffy in the house." Ro turned to Galu, rubbed his head, and reminded him, "Galu, it will be much better if you ventilate the room. Don't forget to close the windows and cover yourself with the blanket when you go to sleep at night. It can get very cold, and you mustn't get sick." I know." For Ro's somewhat nagging words, Galu felt no impatience at all. Instead, he felt warm inside. Downstairs, Ro told Galu to sit on the sofa while she went to help Apple Jar in the kitchen. As for Galu, what could you expect him, who knows nothing, to help with? Haha, it would be good if he didn't cause trouble. Before long, a sweet aroma wafted into Galu's nose like a nimble little snake. His small nose twitched a couple of times, and his hooves seemed to have a mind of their own, walking toward the source of the scent. Bang! Ouch! Galu, who was suddenly hit on the head, immediately shed physiological tears and looked up to meet Apple Jar's gaze. At that moment, Apple Jar was dragging her specialty, apple pie. Seeing this, Ro gently rubbed the spot on Galu's head where he had been hit, with a hint of reproach in her tone. "I know you're hungry, but don't forget to wash your hooves before dinner." "Oh." Seeing Galu's eager expression, the two horses exchanged a glance and couldn't help but smile. Just then, a head poked in from outside. "Sister Ro, where's the bathroom?" Hearing this, Ro gave Apple Jar a helpless look, then untied her apron and led Galu to the bathroom. Splash! After washing his hooves, Galu suddenly found a blind spot. "Sister Ro, after washing my hooves. If I put my hooves on the ground to walk, does that mean I wash them for nothing?" Hearing this, Ro, who was carefully drying Galu's hooves, paused and looked at him with a strange expression. Then she remembered Galu's amnesia and explained, "Pegasi have wings, and after washing their hooves, to prevent them from getting dirty, they usually fly in midair." Saying this, Ro flapped her orange wings in front of Galu. As for land horses, they usually stand upright and walk over. As for unicorns, remembering her few unicorn friends, Ro paused slightly before continuing. "Unicorns seem to wrap their hooves with magic. I'm not too sure about the specifics." "Oh, right. Do you remember how to use that magic?" Upon hearing this, Galu's gaze flickered, avoiding looking at Ro. "I forgot." To this, Ro didn't say anything but flew behind Galu, gently pulling him to help him stand up better. "Galu, tomorrow morning, I'll have your sister Apple Jar take you to the hospital for a checkup, and in the afternoon, I'll help you find a teacher to teach you some common magic." "Okay. Sister Ro, I don't want to go to the hospital." At the same time, Galu couldn't help but think, with this heartless body of mine, going to the hospital for a checkup? That would be a silent examination. Hearing Galu say this, Ro wasn't angry. After all, it's completely normal for children to be afraid of going to the hospital. Even she was very scared of it when she was little. "Why doesn't Galu want to go to the hospital?" Ro asked while observing him with her peripheral vision. Hearing Ro's question, Galu showed a conflicted expression, completely unaware that this scene was falling into Ro's eyes. Just like that, Galu absent-mindedly finished dinner, sent away Apple Jar, who was unwilling to stay. And soon it was bedtime. Joining the room, Ro gently and attentively tucked the blanket around him, never bringing up the previous issues again. As night deepened and the weather turned a bit chilly, she reminded him not to kick off the blanket while sleeping to avoid catching a cold. Just as she was about to get up, her hoof was caught by Galu. "Why? What? Why are you being so nice to me?" Seeing the stark contrast between Galu now and during the day, Ro was taken aback, for at this moment, Galu's eyes were indifferent, devoid of any emotion. Noticing this, Galu let out a bitter smile and released her hoof, leaning back as he spoke to himself. "Ro, I'm sorry for deceiving you. In truth, I am already dead, and what sustains my life now is a gem filled with magic." As he spoke, Galu activated the magic crystal, and suddenly, a brilliant light erupted from his chest, revealing a faintly visible diamond-shaped gem. Ignoring the stunned Ro, Galu continued, "Although I am reluctant to leave this world, I have no choice, as he will not allow someone like me to exist. I have a premonition that after tonight, I will undergo a true rebirth." Chapter 7. Luna's return from the future. After a brief pause, Galu said, "Ro, my time is running out. If you have any questions, just ask." Hearing this, Ro fell silent, placing her hoof on Galu's heart, where she felt not a single beat. Would you be willing to be my brother? Upon hearing this unexpected question, Galu was taken aback. What? Seeing his dazed expression, Ro chuckled softly and asked again, would you be willing to be my brother? A single crystal tear slipped from the corner of Galu's eye, which he discreetly wiped away. The moment the words were spoken, Ro hugged him tightly. It's okay. I'll ask you this question again tomorrow. Feeling the warmth enveloping her, and hearing the tender words by her ear, Galu felt a warm current flow across his face. And his vision became blurred. Tears fell onto Ro's body as she gently stroked Galu's back, comforting him. Time passed, and Galu fell into a deep sleep in Ro's embrace. After carefully laying him down and adjusting the blanket to ensure it covered him fully, Ro quietly left the room. Sigh. Looks like I need to take a shower again. Though it was a complaint, the smile at the corner of her mouth couldn't be suppressed. Holding a towel, she walked toward the bathroom, her feelings somewhat complicated. The day's events were fantastical, yet everything that had happened confirmed to Ro that it was real. Alas, she silently vowed never to speak of this matter. On the other side, the sleeping Galu was unaware that the moment Ro left the room, the system announced the completion of the task. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden task of confession. Rewards have been issued. No, it should be called Luna now, as the armor representing the nightmare moon had shed, revealing her true appearance. Her eyes sparkled, reflecting Galu's petite figure. Raising a hoof, she gently touched his cheek, and Luna's gaze softened, exuding affection and restraint that she couldn't hide, though it might also be that she had no intention of hiding it at all. However, all of this was beyond the comprehension of the psychologically younger Galu. At that moment, Galu only knew that his sister Luna had been made to cry. In a flurry, he rushed to wipe away her tears, but for some reason, the more he wiped, the more tears flowed, while her smile grew brighter. He pulled her into his embrace, feeling the warmth and scent he had longed for through countless nights. Sister Luna? Upon hearing this familiar yet strange address, Luna tightened her hold on him, thinking, if I had not overly emphasized our teacher-student relationship back then, perhaps we would have been together long ago. Looking back now, she realized she had been foolish, only understanding her feelings after losing everything. That thing awakened on Galu's 17th birthday, which was still 5 years away. 5 years is neither long nor short, and there was much preparation to be done. However, most of this preparation could only begin after Galu's sister discovered it. As for now, of course, I'll teach this little guy magic just like before, Luna thought, but with the experience from before. She had already devised a plan on how to help him learn the magic she would teach him quickly. Oh right. There's one more important thing, to make this little guy fall in love with me again. After some time, Luna finally calmed down, releasing the little guy in her arms. Meeting his confused gaze, her mood lightened a bit more. It's been a long time, Galu. Hearing those clouded words, Galu tilted his head adorably, but he didn't think too much and mimicked her, saying, long time no see, Sister Luna. Seeing this, Luna was momentarily stunned as the image of the horse before her overlapped with the voice in her memory. But it instantly transformed into the image of Galu lying in a pool of blood. Taking a deep breath, she suppressed the turmoil in her heart and repeatedly told herself that she would change this situation. She would. Though she thought a lot, only a moment had passed. Once he came to his senses, he pulled Galu to sit on the grass, wrapping his hooves around him from behind in a rather ambiguous posture, saying, Galu, today, sister won't teach you magic. Instead, I'll teach you some other knowledge, okay? Other knowledge? Sure. Yes. Rather than knowledge, it was more about a pact, a magical pact. As she spoke, Luna let Galu lean against her, saying, with this promise, we can be together forever. Do you want to be with your sister forever? Forever together? Galu didn't understand, but he was willing. Looking at the innocent Galu, Luna felt a rare pang of guilt, but at this moment, she thought it best to establish their relationship first and cultivate their feelings slowly later. As for the magical promise, besides proclaiming ownership, it could also protect him when external forces threatened Galu's life. Since Galu was willing, it was time to begin. With that, Luna lowered her head, allowing her horn to touch Galu's, and as the deep blue and platinum magical energies intertwined, they both instinctively opened their mouths. I, Galu Luna, willingly become partners with Luna, Galu, for eternity, never to part. Simple words, yet they represented an eternal promise. Thus, it was established. As the platinum and deep blue magical light faded, Galu gazed up with his confused eyes at Luna, who was holding him. The exchange and fusion of their original magical energies did not cause any discomfort. Instead, both their magical powers increased, thanks to the compatibility of their energies. Originally, Luna thought that if their magical compatibility was insufficient, She could have Galu use his innate ability to elevate their compatibility to an infinite level. But it seemed that wasn't necessary after all. Innate compatibility was better than acquired, wasn't it? Ruffling his platinum mane, Luna couldn't help but praise, not bad. Our magical compatibility is very high. Then she pretended to ask casually, Gallop, what is your talent? Chapter 8 Talent? Perhaps Luna was afraid that Gallop wouldn't understand now. So she added, It's the ability you were born with that is different from the other little ponies around you. Hearing this, Gallop lowered his head and began to think carefully. Different? 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 Seeing this, Luna didn't urge him. After all, she hadn't planned to ask it all at once. Not to mention that Gallop was still young and didn't understand much. Even if he did understand, he wouldn't reveal such secrets to a stranger he met for the second time. However, she overestimated Gallop's intelligence at that moment. Just as Luna was contemplating how to ask him further, Gallop in her arms suddenly exclaimed, Oh, I remember now, my talent is called healing. Upon hearing this, Luna was taken aback and looked at Gallop, who seemed to be seeking praise, and couldn't help but doubt. She then said earnestly, Gallop, you must remember, from now on, no matter who asks you, you cannot reveal your ability called healing. Do you understand? Why? Luna pressed down on his somewhat restless little head and said, Gallop, maybe you haven't noticed, but your talents in various aspects are very good. You just need a little more confidence in believing that you can do it. And then there is nothing you can't accomplish. Finally, Luna changed her tone and said, A commoner is innocent, but having something precious can bring trouble. Especially such a rare healing ability. Before you become a true strong pony, having an overly powerful and unexplainable ability will only attract ponies with ulterior motives. At this point, Luna noticed Gallop's face was written with confusion, so she used words that Gallop could understand and said, That means there will be bad ponies who will bully you. Upon hearing this straightforward explanation, Gallop understood and nodded vigorously. Gallop realized that he wouldn't tell others about his healing ability. Seeing that he understood her meaning, Luna nodded with relief and held Gallop tightly. After an unknown amount of time, Gallop fell into a deep sleep in Luna's embrace. Looking at his adorable sleeping face, Luna couldn't help but gently kiss him before quietly exiting the dream. On the moon, Luna opened her eyes and her gaze fell on the already shattered armor that represented the nightmare moon. Using her magic, she retrieved a deep blue crystal about the size of 2 hooves and began to slowly infuse her magic into it. At this moment, the night had deepened. At the same time, in the Canterlot Castle, in Celestia's room, a tall white alicorn sat quietly by the window, gazing at the moon in the night sky, murmuring, Luna, why, having recovered, won't you meet me? As she spoke, tears glistened at the corners of her eyes. Sister, are you still angry with me about what happened back then? After saying this, she seemed to recall something and gave a self-deprecating smile, saying, I neglected your feelings, ignored your loneliness, and it was I who taught you to seal yourself for 1,000 years. Wiping her misty eyes, she looked up at the moon hanging in the sky again. It's understandable that you hate me. The next morning, Applejack left Sweet Apple Acres with 2 baskets of fresh apples. After hearing about Gallop's experiences and Rarity's decision to adopt him, Granny Smith immediately praised Applejack and Macintosh and then asked them to help out as much as they could. So, that morning, Applejack got up early, picked 2 baskets of fresh apples, and planned to take them to Rarity. Here, the author made some changes to the setting and altered some previous content. But there may be omissions that everyone can point out. At 18 years of age, the protagonist will be 4 to 5 years younger than the main group. Currently, the protagonist is temporarily staying at Rarity's house, and I want to say more to avoid spoilers. Meanwhile, Rarity, who also got up early, finished washing up. First looked at Gallop, who was still fast asleep in the room, and then began her work for the day. Because today, she would take Gallop to find Twilight Sparkle to see if she could teach Gallop some small spells useful in daily life. Moreover, she also needed to take Gallop to the hospital for a checkup to avoid any hidden health issues. Therefore, she needed to finish her work as soon as possible. She opened the door to the backyard and prepared the food that the small animals loved. In no time, the aroma of the food woke the small animals still dreaming. They all hurried towards the direction of the delicious smell. At that moment, a little bunny rubbing its eyes accidentally bumped into Rarity's hoof. The underdeveloped little head hit the incredibly hard hoof, and immediately, countless stars appeared in the bunny's eyes. Fortunately, Rarity noticed the dazed little guy and quickly supported him. Oh, be careful, little one. Squeak, squeak. I have some things to do today, so I thought I'd finish my work early. After giving her instructions, Rarity entered the storage room where she found Gallop. When she came out again, she was fully armed. She was wearing a white protective suit, holding a broom in one hand and a shovel in the other. Next, she had to do a very serious task, which was to clean up after these little creatures. Rarity, who loved small animals, was also a girl who liked cleanliness, so being able to clean up after them every day was already quite good. It should be noted that Rarity's backyard was quite large, and the number of small animals living there was countless. So the amount cleaned up each day was naturally not small. Fortunately, after being taught, they had already learned to use a fixed spot for their business. Otherwise, just collecting this would be a massive workload. An hour later, Rarity had finished cleaning. Finally, with Mr. Bear's help, they used the collected waste as fertilizer for the flower fields outside the town. Chapter 9, A Normal Morning. After completing all this work, as soon as she entered the house, she saw 2 boxes of apples placed in the living room. As for where they came from, Rarity already had an answer in her mind. Why is Applejack here? Thinking this, Rarity followed the direction of the sound, arriving at the kitchen door. Before she could get closer, she saw Applejack busy in the kitchen. At almost the same time, Applejack, who was making breakfast, also noticed Rarity and waved to her. But since she had a spatula in her mouth and it was inconvenient to talk, she pointed to the nearly cooked breakfast and then to the second floor, signaling Rarity to go wake Gallop up first. Seeing this scene, Rarity didn't say anything more. She had originally planned to make breakfast, but now she had to go upstairs to wake Gallop. Knock, knock, knock. Gallop, are you up? Can I come in? The knocking on the door woke Gallop from his dreams, and in his dazed state, he heard the voice coming from outside. Perhaps it was because Rarity's voice was too soft, or maybe Gallop wasn't fully awake yet. He just sat there on the bed with a blank stare. Gallop, are you awake? This time, Rarity's voice clearly reached Gallop's ears, and he seemed to finally react, looking around in confusion, but his body had already reacted first. I'm up. Hearing this, Rarity pushed the door open and walked in. Looking at the still somewhat dazed Gallop, Rarity sat by the bed and asked, Gallop, do you remember who I am? It was only then that Gallop woke up a bit and looked at Rarity beside him with a gaze full of confusion. Sister, who are you? Seeing this, Rarity showed an expression of expected understanding and then, after a moment of thought, said half-jokingly. Ruru's words came out after just a moment of thought. As a result, there were quite a few loopholes, such as how she knew Gala's name. However, with Gala's current state, he naturally couldn't wrap his mind around it. I'm sorry. I seem to have forgotten things from the past. Seeing the other person's pitiful expression, Ruru reached out to touch Galu's head and said, if you have nowhere to go, it's fine to stay here. Feeling the gentle aura radiating from her, Galu couldn't help but relax a little and asked uncertainly, really? Of course. If you don't mind, you can call me sister, Ruru said, and Galu nodded excitedly. I understand. Sister. At that moment, for some reason, Galu felt no aversion to calling her sister. Good boy. Upon hearing this address, a smile unconsciously appeared on Ruru's face as she said, hurry up and get up. I'll go down to help Applejack make breakfast. You wash up and come down. Just as Ruru reached the door, she suddenly remembered something and said, by the way, the washroom on the second floor is the room at the right end. And don't forget to call for sister when you come down later. Got it. After watching Ruru leave the room, Galu climbed down from the bed. He scratched his messy mane and walked towards the washroom. Pushing open the door, he walked to the mirror and surveyed the area before his gaze fell on the brand new toiletries. Gala didn't think much of it and assumed Ruru had prepared them in advance. As the platinum-colored magic enveloped them, the new toiletries were moved in front of him. Squeezing some toothpaste, relying on the little life knowledge he had, Galu began his first brushing. After a moment, he spat out the mouthwash. When he looked up, a light blue virtual panel appeared in front of him. Host Galu. Age, 12 years. System, lottery system. Lottery attempts, 10. Equipped items, magic crystal heart. Skills, I think power, colorful, healing technique, gold. Backpack, 600 gold coins. Upon seeing this panel, the methods of use and other information immediately appeared in Galu's mind. Looking at the remaining 10 lottery attempts, he felt puzzled but didn't think too much. After all, who wouldn't take advantage of a good deal? Perhaps it was a system data error that gave him 10 extra lottery attempts? Thinking this way, Galu silently switched to the lottery page. System 10 consecutive draws. Ding. Consumed 10 lottery attempts. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 1,003 gold coins. White. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Basic Unicorn Magic Mastery. Blue. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Charismatic Bone. Gold. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Host Body Manual. Partial. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Random Multiverse Item Lottery Ticket X3. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining System AI Module Activation Permission. Crossed out. System AI Module. Item grades are divided into white, green, blue, red, gold, colorful. Aside from those items that are immediately understandable, Galu carefully browsed the details page below the items. Basic Unicorn Magic Mastery. With basic unicorn magic like levitation and illumination, you have reached a level of proficiency and mastery. Charismatic Bone. Passive, often able to easily attract the attention of the opposite sex. The opposite sex is easily drawn to your charm. And ordinary horses will have a good impression upon first meeting, while high-quality members of the opposite sex will gradually fall for you. Random Multiverse Lottery Ticket. The host can use this ticket to draw items from the multiverse at the system. Chapter 10. First Encounter with Jinchi. Because time was running out, Galu did not use his 3 random multiverse item lottery tickets. He hurried downstairs and saw Applegyre and Ruru serving breakfast on the table. Sisters, good morning. Hearing this, Applegyre turned to see Galu standing at the staircase greeting her. Good morning. Come over and have breakfast, and later your sister Ruru will take you out. Galu felt a bit surprised that Applegyre naturally invited him to eat breakfast, and he felt a very familiar sensation. However, this feeling only lasted for a moment as he was distracted by the aroma of food. The golden and crispy bread emitted a wheat fragrance, with the edges slightly curled due to baking. Above the bread lay several strips of sizzling bacon, and a boiled egg quietly rested beside them. Ruru quickly placed a glass of milk in front of him and said, "Take your time eating, we're not in a hurry." After finishing breakfast and bidding farewell to Applegyre, Ruru took Galu towards the center of the town. "Galu, I'll take you to meet my friends." Got it, sister." They stopped in front of a building resembling a carousel, and after giving Galu a reassuring glance, Ruru stepped forward to knock on the door. After doing this, Ruru returned to Galu's side to wait with him. After a moment, the door remained tightly closed. Under Galu's puzzled gaze, Ruru felt a bit awkward. Just as she was about to knock again, the door was opened from the inside. What came into view was a white unicorn wrapped in a transparent packaging bag. Upon seeing the visitors outside, the unicorn showed a relieved smile and said, "Oh, thank goodness." Before Ruru could ask, the unicorn continued, "Ruru, can you help me? I'm about to go crazy with these packaging bags." Hearing this, Ruru didn't hesitate and stepped forward, pulling at a corner of the transparent packaging bag, finding the place where it was tangled and unwrapping it, finally removing the packaging bag from the unicorn. "Jinchi, what happened here?" Originally subconsciously tidying her hair, Jinchi, upon hearing the question, did not hide the situation and said frankly, The carousel costume house has just been built, and I bought a batch of fake horse models. I was just unwrapping their packaging. Need help?" "Oh, this." Just as Jinchi was about to refuse, she turned and saw the chaotic room and nodded helplessly, saying, "All right, I have to admit, I really need help." Saying this, she moved aside to indicate for the other person to come in. However, unexpectedly, Ruru did not do as she wished. Instead, she waved her hand behind her, and under Jinchi's gaze, a platinum-colored flowing cloud flew to Ruru's side. Glancing down instinctively, Jinchi saw a white unicorn that looked slightly younger than herself. However, what was peculiar was that the unicorn's horn was curved, and the flowing cloud she had seen earlier was the unicorn's mane, which represented overflowing magic. Chapter 11. Eastern Unicorn? Jinchi's eyes gradually widened, disbelief spreading across her face. This is an Eastern Unicorn." Saying this, Jinchi's eyes sparkled with an unusual light. She circled around Galu, examining him closely while muttering to herself, "This is truly strange. From the appearance, it does look like an Eastern Unicorn, but how is that possible?" For some reason, under Jinchi's overly enthusiastic gaze, Galu felt an unusual sensation rising in his heart. Seizing the opportunity when Jinchi moved to a distance from Ruru, he hurriedly hid behind Ruru, peeking out cautiously to observe her. Seeing that Jinchi seemed to know something, Ruru opened her mouth to inquire, "Jinchi, do you know about Galu's background?" It was only at this moment that Jinchi noticed the inappropriateness of her behavior and awkwardly scratched her cheek, saying, "I guess I do, but it's a long story. Let's go inside, and I'll tell you slowly." After saying that, she took the lead and walked into the house. Galu, who was left behind, exchanged a glance with Roro before following her in. Upon entering the hall, there were naturally no sofas in the fashion house as they had not yet arranged any furniture. Jinchi sifted through a pile of recently arrived packages and finally pulled out a cardboard box about 2 or 3 times the size of Galu. "Haha, I'm really sorry. I didn't expect anyone to come at this time," she said while opening the package and taking out a folding chair. "I hope you don't mind." After saying that, she set up the chair and signaled for Galu and the others to sit down. Once everyone was seated, Jinchi first inquired about Galu. Of course, Roro couldn't tell the whole truth about what happened yesterday. She could only narrate the events with 7 parts truth and 3 parts falsehood. "Oh, so that's how it is?" Jinchi said with a somewhat strange expression. Dear, you've noticed too, right? Galu's horn is curved, which is different from ordinary unicorns. Ro nodded in response, saying, That's right. I originally planned to take Galu to the hospital for a checkup to see if there was a problem with his health. Hearing this, Jinshi chuckled and waved her hand, saying, Oh my, fortunately, dear, you came to find me first, otherwise you would have made a wasted trip. Why? Ro felt very puzzled by Jinshi's baffling words. Why? That's because Galu's curved horn is innate, Jinshi explained when she saw that Ro still looked confused. Because a curved horn belongs to a special trait of eastern unicorns, which differs due to various environmental reasons where they live, resulting in this special characteristic of eastern unicorns. It's just like how rabbits have different sizes and colors depending on where they live, right? Seeing that Ro understood this, Jinshi nodded and said, Your understanding isn't wrong. Ro, a bit worried, asked again, Will it affect daily life? Jinshi reassured her, You can rest easy about this. Just like how different ponies have different mane colors, as long as it doesn't affect the use of magic, it's fine. Phew, that's good. With that, Ro sighed in relief while feeling curious in her heart. But Jinshi, why do you know so much? Well, Jinshi said somewhat shyly. It's because of a story I like. The background of that story is in the East, so I looked it up before. Seeing Ro's cheeks slightly redden. She didn't press for more details, but planned to visit the library when she had time. Oh, I see. She glanced around. Since I promised to help you, let's get started quickly. Seeing her eagerness, Jinshi was curious but didn't ask further, considering Galu was present. All right then. With that, Jinshi, with Ro's help, began to unwrap the items. Under Jinshi's direction, they moved everything to their respective places. Meanwhile, Galu felt awkward just sitting there watching them work. Looking at his small body, it was naturally impossible for him to do the same work as them. After scanning the area, Galu noticed the transparent packaging bags, cardboard boxes, foam boards, and so on scattered on the ground. He immediately had an idea that he could do something within his capacity to help clean up the trash lying around. He then found a larger cardboard box and stuffed the transparent packaging bags and foam boards inside. Ro, noticing this, just smiled and did not stop him. Jinshi, following Ro's gaze, naturally noticed this too. So, she discreetly took Ro to a spot a bit farther from Galu and spoke in a voice only the two of them could hear. Ro, this little guy you picked up might not be ordinary. This made Ro, who was tearing tape, pause and think, no way. Has Galu's situation been exposed so quickly? However, Jinshi's next words completely dispelled her doubts. Look at his flowing mane. That's a sign of overflowing magic. Following her gaze, Ro saw Galu's flowing brown mane, which she had not only seen, but also touched. What's wrong? Seeing Ro's confused expression, Jinshi covered her face and said, That is overflowing magic. Overflowing magic. Apart from the cosmic princess, I haven't heard of anyone else having overflowing magic. Not even the other princess. To put it simply, overflowing magic signifies that the unicorn has a large amount of magic inside them. This is different from the randomness of magical talent. The innate magic capacity is related to bloodline. Seeing that Ro seemed indifferent, Jinshi felt a bit exasperated and said, in simple terms, at Galu's age, having such a huge amount of magic means that at least one of his direct ancestors within 3 generations is a princess. Hearing this, Ro seemed to understand. But thinking about her conversation with Galu yesterday, she secretly sighed in relief and said, So what? She has amnesia now. I can't just abandon him. No. Jinshi quickly waved her hands and said, What I mean is that Galu's status in the East must be quite high. You can use this clue to look for his biological parents. To this, Ro nodded on the surface, but she had no intention of doing so in her heart. The reason was simple. Combined with what Galu said yesterday, it could be confirmed that Galu had died once. Why? The reason was unknown, but at least it could be determined that maintaining the current situation was the best solution. Sigh. This was the storyline since Ziyue became a princess. For some reason, the original author couldn't continue. Therefore, she was unclear about the later plot and didn't know if there were Eastern countries in the original work. She searched online but found nothing, so she had to make her own assumptions. Chapter 12. In that case, I will start from this perspective. I hope Galu can find his family soon. Jinshi sincerely wished. On the other side, Galu naturally did not notice the conversation between the two ponies. He was solely focused on cleaning up the trash. From Ro and Jinshi's perspective, Galu first gathered the transparent packaging bags together, then found an empty cardboard box to place beside him. Finally, he picked up the transparent packaging bags and stuffed them entirely into the empty cardboard box. Due to his size, Galu was somewhat unstable when he lifted the packaging bags, wobbling as he did so. He almost ended up falling into the empty box along with the transparent packaging bags. Witnessing all this, Jinshi and Ro exchanged glances and couldn't help but chuckle. Their unrestrained laughter naturally reached Jialu's ears, causing a blush to creep up on his cheeks. Eventually, it was Ro who rescued him, preventing him from suffocating under the plastic bags. She then placed Jialu on the chair and spoke to him in a tone used to coax children. "Jialu, is it okay for you to sit here?" Hearing this, Jialu said somewhat aggrieved, "But I just want to help my sisters." Seeing this, Jinshi spoke up to dissuade him. "Jialu, just sit here obediently. Some sharp objects might be mixed in with the trash. What if you get hurt?" This was echoed by Ro as well. "Yes, what if I get hurt?" Seeing the deep concern in the other person's eyes, Jialu didn't say anything further this time and just nodded. So well behaved." Saying this, Ro kissed Jialu's cheek gently, making him blush. In response, Ro just smiled slightly and continued to organize the items with Jinshi. By the time Jialu regained his normal state, Ro and the others had already immersed themselves in their work again. For some reason, as he watched them working while he sat there resting, he felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. Glancing over, he noticed Jinshi's glowing horn. "Right, how could I forget that I'm a unicorn?" Jialu thought to himself, feeling a bit annoyed. He could definitely use magic. Just as he was about to get up, he remembered Ro's earlier instruction to stay seated. Although they hadn't spent much time together, Jialu could feel Ro's tenderness and care for him deeply. This made him reluctant to go against her wishes. With this thought, he focused his mind, and platinum-colored magic was released from his horn. He accurately made the trash float up, and, like a train, it drilled into the cardboard box. Such an obvious movement couldn't be hidden from Ro and Jinshi. But since Jialu was using magic, they didn't say anything and just let him be. However, Jinshi wasn't surprised to see Jialu, at his age, accurately controlling so many objects at once. Perhaps in her mind, this was to be expected. Hours passed, and the room was finally tidied up. Besides the help from Ro and Jialu, it was also due to the fact that not many items were delivered today. Outside the door, Jinshi and Ro each carried a large box, while Jialu followed behind with a small box. When they reached the trash can, they threw away the trash. Jinshi suggested treating Ro and Jialu to drinks. Originally, Ro wanted to refuse, but considering she had a favor to ask, she agreed without hesitation, generously accepting the offer. When they reached an open space, Jinshi actively asked, "Jialu, do you still remember those spells?" After hearing Jialu list a series of basic spells like reading off a menu, Jinshi's smile gradually stiffened on her face. Seeing this, Ro weakly inquired, "Is something wrong?" Glancing at the approaching Ro, Jinshi's expression was complex, but she didn't say anything. It's known that unicorns only show a significant growth trend in magical power after their youth. Learning magic too early can be detrimental rather than beneficial. This also meant that some young unicorns, due to talent or time constraints, only learned a few small spells useful in daily life. It could even be said that if a young unicorn could proficiently use all the spells in the basic unicorn magic compendium, they would already be considered outstanding among unicorns. Among the spells Jialu listed, Jinshi hadn't even heard of them. Ro, do you have some misunderstanding about magic? What do you mean, dear? Perhaps you don't quite understand. Simply put, most unicorns, aside from those exceptionally gifted who diligently study magic, only know about 3 or 4 basic spells. Occasionally, some unicorns with more magical power might learn teleportation magic. To sum it up, it would be more appropriate for your Jialu to teach me magic. Avoiding Jinshi's resentful gaze, Ro instinctively turned away. But he doesn't know the magic for keeping hands clean after washing. Upon hearing this, Jinshi rolled her eyes at her with a hint of amusement, saying, Ro, you misunderstood. That's not really a spell, it's a use of magical power. If Jialu wants to learn, I can definitely teach him. As soon as she finished speaking, Jinshi seemed to remember something and added, however, Jialu has already learned the cleaning magic and can use it instead of washing his hands. After hearing Jinshi's explanation, Ro finally understood and asked Jialu, "Are you willing to learn?" He nodded, indicating his willingness. Then, under Jinshi's guidance, he attempted to practice the technique of wrapping his hooves with magical power. Perhaps due to Jialu's strong magical talent or some other factor, he quickly learned this technique. Chapter 13, The Golden Oak Library. After that, Jinshi taught Jialu some additional small techniques for using magical power that she had summarized. Perhaps due to the experience from the first time, Jialu learned remarkably quickly afterward. This made Jinshi wipe the sweat off her forehead and say, "I can't teach him anything more." Ro looked a bit worried and asked, "What should we do?" This was the first time Jinshi felt helpless because of someone else's high talent. "There's nothing we can do. The Unicorn Academy here only teaches basic unicorn magic. To learn more advanced magic, you would need to go to Cantrelot, where there are unicorn teachers who can teach advanced magic." At this point, Roro fell into deep thought. The reason was simple. The Cantrelot Academy was not accessible to just anyone, even though she had great confidence in Galu's talent. Without connections and money, why would they let him in? Zhenqi naturally understood this as well and thought for a moment before saying, "But there is another solution." "What solution?" Roro asked eagerly. "It's the library. The Golden Oak Library, which was funded by the Cosmic Princess. Does the library have books that teach magic?" Zhenqi nodded. "Of course, most of the books there are copies from the Cantrelot Royal Library, so there are definitely books that teach magic. And the last time I was there looking for books on costume design, I found the Intermediate Unicorn Magic Compendium." After hearing Zhenqi's explanation, Roro felt a bit excited yet confused and asked, "Then why didn't you learn, Zhenqi?" Upon hearing this, Zhenqi was momentarily speechless and awkwardly said, Well, I had some matters to attend to at that time." Seeing her like this, Roro realized she had misspoken and didn't bring it up again. She called Galu, who was still experimenting with various spells, over and said directly, "Galu, you can learn more magic in the library. I want to ask if you're willing to go learn." Although Roro hoped Galu could go further in the future, she also had to consider his own opinions, right? If Galu was unwilling to learn magic, she naturally wouldn't force him. However, unexpectedly, Galu nodded and said, "Of course I'm willing." It's worth noting that when they were Galu's age, they didn't exactly dislike learning, but they certainly wouldn't say they liked it either. Zhenqi's gaze softened a bit as she looked at Galu and suggested, "Since that's the case, let's set off." The three of them entered the Golden Oak Library, where they did not see anyone else present. Unlike the curious Galu, Zhenqi and Roro, who walked ahead, seemed somewhat accustomed to it. Upon entering the rows of brand new bookshelves, Zhenqi took 2 books from different shelves. One was a book on accessories matching tips that she hadn't finished reading, and the other was the Intermediate Unicorn Magic Compendium that Galu needed. Meanwhile, Roro picked up a book on herbal care from a more distant shelf. When they reached the reading area, Roro softly reminded Galu to read quietly. Although there were only 3 of them here, they still decided to abide by the rules. When they opened the Intermediate Unicorn Magic Encyclopedia, they felt a wave of magical energy. Looking around, they didn't notice anything unusual. He shrugged it off as just his imagination. Meanwhile, Celestia, who was dealing with today's affairs, was slightly taken aback as she sensed a trace of Luna's presence. Although it was weak, she was certain it was Luna's aura. Puzzled, Celestia immediately activated her detection magic. However, considering that it might be Luna, for some reason, she instinctively concealed the detection wave. Naturally, Galu, who was far away in Ponyville, was exposed to Celestia without any surprise. When she saw him, Celestia frowned and thought to herself, "A little pony from the east?" However, the subsequent discovery made Celestia's expression darken completely. In her further perception, she naturally detected the abundant magic power of Galu, along with a hint of Luna's original magic power mixed in. Initially, she thought this was one of Luna's students. But the true situation revealed in her further perception was a shocking revelation. I never expected you to pull off something like this." At that moment, Celestia wore a complex expression. Time passed quickly, and the book that originally had little left was read in one breath by Ruru. She initially wanted to find another book to read, but suddenly remembered something. Ruru walked to a place where draft paper was piled up. Sometimes, students would come here to do their homework after school, and over time, the staff prepared some draft paper for them. Of course, some people also used it as letter paper. Seeing Galu, who was engrossed in his studies, and noticing he wasn't paying attention, Ruru took a piece of paper from above and wrote, "Dear Mom and Dad, I want to share something special with you. On that rainy night not long ago, I heard a series of sounds of the door frame crashing and the sound of the drizzling rain. After ruling out everything inside the house, I went to the storage room outside. Sure enough, I saw that wooden door wide open from a distance. In the following investigation, I learned that he had lost his memory and is now homeless. I decided to temporarily take him in until I find his parents. Dad, Mom, how have you been lately? Has my little brother changed? Is he still like he used to be? Your loving daughter, Ruru." After finishing the letter, Ruru quietly put it away, intending to send it to her parents when she had the time. In the letter, Ruru did not mention needing her parents' consent, but directly stated her intention to take in Galu. In certain matters she had already determined, she was always inexplicably firm. Chapter 14. The lottery. When noon arrived, Galu bid farewell to Zhenqi and hurried towards home with Ruru. When leaving, Galu took the Intermediate Unicorn Magic Encyclopedia with Celestia's tacit approval. It is known that this is the place where Ziyue will live in the future, and there are trials set by Celestia to cultivate her. Therefore, the knowledge in the books here involves many secrets, and to prevent any bad things from happening, Celestia placed magic on these special books. The reason Gallup could successfully take the Intermediate Unicorn Magic Encyclopedia was not only because of Luna, but also due to his exceptional talent. In fact, if it weren't for the aura from Luna on him, Celestia would have probably already captured him to implement her retirement plan. However, Celestia was unaware that all her actions and thoughts had long been anticipated by her beloved sister Luna, who missed her dearly. Even now, she was imagining how troubled she must be. Unlike the troubled Celestia, Gallup was happily bouncing behind Ruru towards home. Ruru, walking ahead, kept an eye on Gallup behind her to avoid any accidents. As they passed the mailbox, Ruru casually slipped the letter she had previously written inside. Seeing this, Gallup curiously peeked into the green mailbox after Ruru walked away. All he saw was darkness, and he pouted, looking a bit unhappy. Ruru naturally noticed this scene and couldn't help but smile, pretending not to see it, urging, "Hurry up, Gallup, or we won't have time to make lunch." "Okay, got it," he replied, glancing into the mailbox again before hastily catching up to Ruru. Seeing his eager attitude towards learning, Ruru felt very gratified. She didn't disturb him and began preparing lunch for the day. Gallup sat on the sofa, reading the explanations in the book, and after confirming he understood, he wanted to start practicing. But then he thought about how he was still indoors, which wasn't a good place, and immediately dismissed the idea. He didn't want to look at the later content, not because he was unwilling to learn, but for some reason. Skipping directly to the later magic made him feel uncomfortable, and naturally, he couldn't concentrate. Feeling a bit bored, he called upon the existence in his mind known as the system. "System? Host, may I ask what you need? I remember I drew 3 World Lottery tickets this morning, right? According to system checks, 3 World Lottery tickets are currently in the host's backpack. Would you like to use them?" Hearing the inquiry, Gallup hesitated and said, "What can I get after using the World Lottery tickets?" Since the World Lottery tickets randomly draw items from across the worlds, the system also does not know what specific items will be drawn. However, due to the official welfare policy, there is a high chance of obtaining purple or higher items on the first draw. After listening to the system's explanation, Gallup thought for a moment and made a decision. If that's the case, then let's draw. Ding. Using 3 random World Lottery tickets. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Demon God Manifestation, Essence of Evil, King of Wisdom, Item, Angel's Protection. Demon God Manifestation, Essence of Evil, a blood-shaped imperial tool forged from the blood of a super dangerous species residing in the far north. The Essence of Evil can create ice for attacks without the need for ice, capable of freezing time and space. King of Wisdom, unique skill, Great Sage. After countless evolution failures, it integrates the unique skill, Mutator, and, after receiving the blessing of Demon King evolution, finally successfully evolves into ultimate ability. Increases perception speed by 1,000,000 times. When fully activated, time will seem to stop. Item, Angel's Protection. A special item that can completely resist any kind of degradation, whether from the body or soul. Chapter 15. King of Wisdom. After just reading the description, Gallup's attention was entirely focused on the first item, the Essence of Evil. He thought to take it out from the system backpack and examine it closely. Just as he was about to decide whether to drink it, a mechanical female voice suddenly rang in his mind. Notice, the King of Wisdom is analyzing the individual Gallup. The sudden voice startled Gallup, and he instinctively looked around, shouting, "Who is it?" Notice, individual Gallup initial analysis completed. Further analysis failed. Trying to analyze again failed. Trying to analyze again failed. Abandoning analysis. What's wrong? Gallup, thinking a stranger had entered the house. Ruru rushed out from the kitchen to ask Gallup. At first, Galu was startled by the voice in his mind, and for a moment didn't know how to explain it. Fortunately, he then noticed that a small yellow bird had landed on the magic book he borrowed without him realizing it. "I'm sorry, Sister Roro. I was too engrossed in my reading and got scared by the bird." Hearing this, Roro breathed a sigh of relief and said, "That's good to hear. Galu, you've been reading for so long, you should take a break. It won't be long before it's time for dinner." Galu obediently nodded and replied, I understand." At that moment, the voice of the King of Wisdom continued to echo in his mind. Notification. The King of Wisdom is analyzing an object called the Essence of Demon. Notification. It has detected that the Essence of Demon contains powerful negative emotions, which could greatly increase the likelihood of the consumer going insane. Notification. The compatibility of individual Galu with the Essence of Demon is 100. According to the King of Wisdom's calculations, consuming the Essence of Demon will not affect individual Galu with its negative emotions. Notification. Individual Galu can use the Essence of Demon, and the King of Wisdom has deduced that it can enhance your strength in a short time. As the voice of the woman in his mind ceased, Galu finally let out a sigh of relief and asked, Are you the second item I drew, the King of Wisdom? Notification. The King of Wisdom is not an item, but an existence called ultimate ability. He clearly did not care about the reminder and said, all right, whatever you say. Now I want to know what the ultimate ability is. Notification. The King of Wisdom possesses independent thinking ability, is an auxiliary skill, can play a wise role, and can analyze and deduce items, creatures, skills, etc., as well as event analysis, etc. After hearing the explanation, Galu clapped his hands, although he didn't quite understand. It sounded impressive. Oh, that's good. Feeling a bit embarrassed from being seen through, Galu shyly changed the topic and asked, then why do you need to add individual before my name? Okay, I understand. I will refer to you as Galu from now on. Oh, okay. Surprised by how easygoing Galu was, he took a moment to process this. Chapter 16 Drinking. However, listening to the King of Wisdom call his name, he felt a bit strange. But considering that the King of Wisdom was willing to call him by name, he didn't want to say anything further. Moreover, he wasn't the kind of person to take advantage of others, out of trust in the system and the instruction manual from earlier that morning. Galu did not hesitate to lift the golden container lid. Looking at the red liquid inside, he swallowed hard. His lips lightly touched the cool rim of the container, and with a gulping sound, the liquid inside disappeared at a visible speed. Oh. After completely finishing it, Galu sighed in relief and collapsed onto the sofa, gently rubbing his slightly swollen belly. After a moment, when he felt the noticeable swelling in his belly had subsided a bit, Galu finally sat up. His gaze fell on the golden container he still held, and for a moment, he didn't know how to handle it. Notification. The container is made of an unknown special material. It is recommended to keep it. Hearing the voice in his mind, Galu decisively dismissed the idea of throwing it away. He couldn't just keep it around. Previously, when Ro came out, this thing was conveniently blocked by the sofa, naturally not drawing her attention. If he were to keep it at home, it was only a matter of time before Ro discovered it. After thinking for a moment and finding no good solution, Galu asked the King of Wisdom, do you have any good methods to hide this thing? Notification. Searching for Galu individual information. Notification. Insufficient permissions to search. Notification. Unable to summarize Galu individual information to deduce a method to hide the essence of demon container. Would you like to view it? View. Notification. Hiding the essence of demon container under the bed in Galu's room has an 86% for chance of being discovered. Seeing this high probability of being discovered, Galu decisively dropped this option and politely told the King of Wisdom, then if you combine it with my individual information, can you come up with a better plan? Notification. Insufficient permissions. Unable to search Galu individual information. How can I give you authorization? Notification. Authorization to search needs to be granted by Galu, which is, agree to the King of Wisdom to search individual information. Although he grumbled in his heart, Galu still granted the King of Wisdom the search permission at the first opportunity. Notification. Searching. After waiting for a moment, the King of Wisdom's voice finally returned. Notification. Galu has a special storage space called System Space, which can store the essence of demon container with a discovery probability of 0.6. After hearing the plan provided by the King of Wisdom, Galu's previously furrowed brows finally relaxed a little. With a thought, the golden container disappeared from Galu's hand. Before he could even check the system, he heard the King of Wisdom's voice again. Notification. Galu is aware of the special storage space called System Space, based on Galu's series of behaviors. The King of Wisdom has doubts about Galu's intelligence. Galu was first stunned for a moment before realizing that the King of Wisdom was calling him stupid. Just as he was about to speak, he opened his mouth but didn't say anything. Chapter 17 Evolution Direction. I'm really fed up. What kind of school is this? You let us leave the next day, and then the next day you make us sit in school for a whole morning doing self-study. Damn. I'm really fed up. This 1,000 words is still what I typed on the bus. I got home after 5 o'clock. It's really. The above content does not count toward the word count. After detecting the emotion called danger from Galu, and combining it with the characteristic that he easily loses focus, the King of Wisdom decisively chose to change the topic. Notification. There is an unknown source of magic within Galu. It has been calculated that if fused, Galu will be polluted. Hearing this, Galu pouted, clearly not believing the result given by the King of Wisdom. Impossible. Sister Luna wouldn't do such a thing. In response, the King of Wisdom paused for a moment and then said, Notification. Considering Galu's susceptibility to pollution, Galu is very likely to be polluted into the race of the unicorn. Upon hearing this, Galu felt a bit embarrassed, and now his face felt hot. But not one to give up easily, he stubbornly retorted, Humph, becoming a unicorn. How can that be considered pollution? That's something all ponies aspire to. Having learned from Jinshi and Ro, Galu felt more confident in his words. Notification. It has been confirmed that the race unicorn is indeed Galu's final evolution direction, but considering the uniqueness of authority, Galu will obtain pseudo-moon authority after fusing with the source magic. Upon hearing this, the support that had been bolstering Galu suddenly dissipated. Even though he didn't quite understand authority, he knew that pseudo meant fake. What should I do? At that moment, Galu spoke with a slight nasal tone, and even he felt inexplicably wronged. Why did he feel this way? Notification. Galu can obtain authority through himself. According to the King of Wisdom's calculations, the types of authority that Galu can obtain, from high to low, are fantasy authority derived from the power of thought, ice authority derived from the essence of demon, and life authority derived from healing. Galu, who almost shed small pearls, sniffed and held back tears as she said, "That's not what I mean. What I mean is, if I can't integrate that source of magical power, will Sister Luna be particularly disappointed in me?" Notification. After testing, the source of the original magical power is a kind of oath similar to partner, where subjectively the other party must leave their scent on Galu, serving as a declaration of sovereignty. Galu, King of Wisdom, dish. Notification. The King of Wisdom will make the best decision based on the knowledge of this world, so please don't worry. But Galu wanted to say something more, but was interrupted by the King of Wisdom. Notification. In order to grow better, please Galu make a choice for your future. Meanwhile, Galu, who was quietly reading the details of her powers, weakly suggested, can I get everything? King of Wisdom, speech. Notification. There is a chance of conflict between powers. Please make a choice as soon as possible. For some reason, Galu felt that the tone of the King of Wisdom was a bit strange this time. But she didn't pay much attention and decisively chose to acquire the fantasy power with the highest probability. Similarly, this was also the most powerful among the three powers. Chapter 18, What is a Partner? Why wasn't he there in update yesterday? The author mentioned it in the book circle. You can check it out. School starts tomorrow. So what is fantasy? Fantasy refers to the imagination and longing for things that do not exist or are unlikely to happen in reality. From a psychological perspective, fantasy is often a projection of people's inner desires and wishes. It can be an imagination of a beautiful future, such as fantasizing about having immense wealth or a successful career. The power that the authority brings to Galu can turn something from fantasy into reality. This power comes with a very high upper limit, which corresponds to a lower limit. Creating things out of thin air is the most basic, even including life, world, space, and so on. It's just a matter of Galu's thought. Of course, that is a later story. At this moment, Galu was being gently pressed down on the bed by Ruru, forced to take an afternoon nap. However, the result was obvious. During lunch, Galu curiously asked Ruru, "Sister, what is a partner?" Ruru, who liked small animals, naturally knew a lot about them. But upon hearing Galu's question, she was clearly taken aback and then explained. A partner refers to two small animals of different genders that combine into a partnership. They stay together, build nests, forage for food, and then, after a long time, they will give birth to young ones. Realizing this was a crucial moment, Ruru hurriedly coughed twice to cover up. Seeing this scene, Galu didn't suspect anything and thought Ruru had choked on her food, quickly bringing water to her and saying, "Sister, drink some water." Seeing the concern in Galu's eyes, Ruru smiled reassuringly. For some reason, after just a day and a half together, she felt as if she was looking at a child she had raised since childhood. What no one knew was that all this was due to a skill Galu had drawn in the morning. Once Ruru calmed down, Galu spoke up, "So, if a male bird and a female bird are partners, they will live together and have baby birds, right?" Ruru's face turned slightly red upon hearing this. And although the answer was somewhat off, it was also due to her, so she had to find a way to cover up the lie. That's what it means. At this moment, Galu seemed to think of something and became a bit shy. Seeing this, Ruru asked, "What's wrong? Do you have more questions?" Then Galu stammered, "If I live with you, will we also have little ponies?" Upon hearing this, Ruru felt shy yet somewhat amused, reaching out to tap Galu's little head and saying, "What are you talking about? We are siblings, not partners. How could we have little ponies?" Hearing this unfamiliar term, Galu's eyes showed confusion. "Partner? It means the same as a partner." "Oh, so what do partners do?" With Galu's continuous questioning, Ruru couldn't help but feel a bit suspicious. Initially, she took Galu's inquiry as mere curiosity, but now, with the probing questions, anyone would feel something was off. "Galu, why are you asking this?" As they finished lunch, Ruru tidied up the table while asking. Meanwhile, Galu was doing her best to help Ruru carry the plates. After pondering the question, she said, "I don't know. There's just a bad guy in my head saying I have a contract related to a partner with someone else." After saying this, Galu couldn't help but think, "I'm so smart. Now Sister Ruru wants to know about Sister Luna's existence." In contrast, Ruru was taken aback by Garu's words and then thought of the unknown background and rare speculations. It seemed quite common for royal nobles to have engagements early on. After all, isn't that how it is portrayed in novels? As for the contract mentioned by Garu, Ruru merely regarded it as a kind of magic. After all, in people's stereotypes, magic is an omnipotent existence. In her heart, she couldn't help but feel like a little cabbage she raised being poked by a pig. Thinking of this, she suddenly shook her head, dismissing the strange idea from her mind, considering Garu's somewhat naive heart. Partners? They will live together, share happiness, eat delicious food together, and enjoy beautiful scenery together. When one party is happy, the other will be doubly happy because of that. Upon hearing this, Garu couldn't help but start to fantasize, but then Ruru changed her tone and said, however, while there is joy in life, there are inevitably difficulties, and partners will naturally face them together. They support each other, encourage each other, find ways to solve problems together, comfort each other when one is sad, and care for one another when tired. As they spoke, Ruru also fell into fantasy. They will work hard for a home, for a warm family, take care of children together, and strive for the future of the family. They accompany each other through the long years. Even though Ruru's narration contained some elements of fantasy, it was still beautiful, wasn't it? At least the loyalty to a partner, the responsibility towards a partner, and the love for a partner, etc., were all conveyed. Right? Author, woo, I also really want to have such a relationship. But in the current environment, sigh, I'm afraid I can only fantasize about it in novels. They talked for a long time about this topic, during which Ruru included a lot of her own opinions. Taking advantage of Garu's interest, she taught her the correct values. However, little did she know that in the future, Garu would give a certain purple pony a headache because of her overly correct values. Of course, that essay later story. You must remember, if you date in the future, you must respect the other party and not engage in frivolous behavior. In summary, Ruru imparted what she considered to be the right things to Garu. As they chatted, the topic gradually shifted towards more intimate matters. Noticing this, Ruru wiped the non-existent cold sweat from her brow, glanced at the time, and pretended to casually say, "Has so much time passed? Garu, it's time for your nap. But I don't want to sleep. Be good. You can't do this, or you won't grow tall." As she spoke, Ruru pushed Garu towards the room. Chapter 19 Luna, successfully deceived. Finally, Ruru sighed in relief after coaxing Garu to sleep. She no longer had to face those more mature questions. Thinking like this, her gaze unconsciously fell again on Galup's serene sleeping face. She couldn't help but start to fantasize about what kind of little pony would be engaged to such a cute little guy. As she thought, even she couldn't help but chuckle softly. Luna, who had been waiting for a long time, was just about to step forward to give a loving hug, but was stopped by Galup's blushing face. His hooves were pressed against Luna, preventing her from moving an inch. Although she could easily embrace Galup like this, the feeling of resistance made Luna frown. A hint of dark red light flashed in her eyes where Galup couldn't see. Then she pretended to be confused and gently asked, "What's wrong?" Hearing the question, Galup stammered. Sister said that partners together will have little ponies." Upon hearing this, Luna narrowed her eyes slightly, and the image of a light yellow pony appeared in her mind. A representative of kindness. Huh? You really are talkative, but thanks to you, I don't have to find an excuse to explain the contract to Galup. She thought to herself, but her face showed a look of sadness as she said, "But Galup has already become a partner with Sister, right?" Upon hearing this, Galup was slightly stunned. "That's right. I am already a partner with Sister Luna." "No. Something seems off." While Galup was pondering, he noticed the sadness on Luna's face. He suddenly remembered the gentle reminder and said a bit flustered, "I am sorry. I didn't mean." Saying this, Galup instinctively wanted to comply with her, but he hesitated midway. He looked at himself and then at her, feeling a bit troubled. Luna, who was acting, noticed this moment and revealed a fleeting smile when he wasn't paying attention. This smile quickly disappeared. Then, they heard Galup's voice, slightly choked with emotion. "What do you mean? We are already partners. Can't we even hug?" Hearing this, Galup also felt a bit wronged and said, But Sister said we can't do things that are too forward." After Galup finished speaking, Luna, who had been acting, was momentarily stunned, then quickly adjusted and said, a bit sobbing, "But haven't we already become partners? Partners can do these things as long as the girl agrees." "Ah, partners can do that?" Galup said in surprise, a bit disbelieving. "Don't boys have to agree for such things?" Then, under Galup's surprised gaze, Luna's previously tearful expression vanished completely, revealing a sly look. Taking advantage of his distraction, she hugged Galup tightly. This series of actions made Galup let out a cheerful cry, and then they heard her questioning voice. "What? Am I not pretty? Or is my status not good enough? Do you think you're at a disadvantage?" No. Hee, that's good then. Luna smiled, rubbing her delicate face against Gallup's little face. And Gallup, being rubbed, was now completely wrapped around by Luna. He felt something was off, but he didn't know what was wrong. Chapter 20. Celestia, perhaps due to lack of experience, Luna didn't hold back her strength while rubbing, making Gallup feel a bit uncomfortable. It wasn't that Luna's skin was bad. In fact, it was soft and comfortable when pressed against him. But who could handle being rubbed like that continuously? After dozens of minutes, Gallup sat angrily to the side, rubbing his slightly red face. In contrast, Luna was giggling beside him, occasionally poking him. However, every time she reached out, it was swatted away before she could touch him. Over time, Luna stopped this and became serious, saying, all right, stop sulking. It's normal for partners to do these things, and now we need to start learning magic. Upon hearing about learning magic, Gallup's interest was piqued. An excitement sparkled in his eyes as he asked, so what are we learning today? Ahem. Well, at this point, Luna paused for a moment, fully igniting Gallup's curiosity before saying, let's not rush. First, let me see what magic you already know. Hearing this somewhat disappointing remark, Gallup puffed out his cheeks, but said nothing. He moved to a nearby open area and began to demonstrate the magic he had already learned. However, he didn't notice that Luna's gaze had a moment of distraction before returning to normal. On the bumpy surface of the moon, a slender white figure appeared in this place, which she at least wanted to show up. The moment her vision cleared, Celestia noticed Luna not far away, looking at her with an unkind gaze. After staring at each other for a long time, it was Celestia who spoke first. Are you back to normal, Luna? However, clearly, Luna did not appreciate this, replying with a slightly mocking tone. Heh, isn't it obvious? But why would our cosmic princess have time to come here? Hearing this slightly unfriendly tone, Celestia felt a pang in her heart, but still forced herself to say. But before Celestia could finish her sentence, Luna impatiently waved her hoof, seemingly remembering something suddenly, and a fleeting smile appeared on her lips. What kind of observation skills does Celestia have? Even in this situation, she still caught that fleeting smile. Combining Luna's demeanor and words with the information she had, Celestia easily guessed a thing or two. You know, Luna, today I found a very cute little Eastern pony. The moment Luna heard the words Eastern pony, her magic involuntarily surged, rushing towards Celestia with the force of a mountain. Clearly, Celestia hadn't anticipated things would develop this way, and was staggered by the sudden surge of magic. Just a stumble, though, she quickly reacted, raising her head to meet Luna's piercing gaze. And a hoarse voice that sounded like a beast's growl came from her throat. What do you want to do? Hee, today just half a day. I'll deliver 1,000 words, and tomorrow I will resume. Chapter 21. Feeling bad, don't want to take it. Seeing Luna in this state, Celestia was also startled and took 2 steps back, raising her front hooves in a surrender-like manner. Luna, don't do this. Calm down, calm down. But things seemed not to develop as she hoped. Luna lunged at her directly without using magic. Seeing this, Celestia also dared not use magic easily, fearing it would hurt her. As a result, she took a heavy hit from Luna. Luna didn't hold back her strength at all, causing a bit of blood to spill from Celestia's mouth. Unlike the astonished Celestia, Luna got up and directly knocked her to the ground, pinning her down with her front hooves on Celestia's hooves. At this moment, their faces were very close. Celestia could clearly feel the hot breath that Luna expelled from her furious panting blowing against her face. He belongs to me, only to me. I won't allow anyone to covet him. Of course, including you. At this point, Celestia was completely stunned. She had never seen Luna like this, not even during that Nightmare Moon incident. This showed how significant that little guy was in Luna's heart. But Luna's words were not over. She continued. If you dare to touch him, don't blame me for risking my life to destroy you and everything you care about. As Luna spoke, black mist gradually seeped out from her body. At that moment, the pendant on her chest emitted a holy light that dispelled the black mist surrounding her. Celestia instantly noticed everything happening to Luna, her gaze involuntarily falling on the pendant radiating divine light. It depicted a pair of silver-white wings, vividly alive, as if always ready to take flight. Under the influence of this holy light, Luna regained some clarity. Her voice was no longer the madness it had been before. It carried a hint of fatigue and hoarseness. Upon hearing this, Celestia couldn't help but widen her eyes in shock, but the next words confirmed everything Luna had said earlier. Your student is indeed very talented, having gained the recognition of the source of harmony, successfully purifying me. As you thought, we have reached a reconciliation and are jointly governing this land. As she spoke, a hint of nostalgia flashed in Luna's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by hatred. But everything changed after that incident. It was you. You were the one who caused his death. Your plan took him completely away from me. You destroyed everything for me. I didn't even get to see him one last time. As she spoke, Luna's voice gradually choked up, and large drops of tears fell onto Celestia's face. Everything was progressing in a good direction for a day, yet it was you who destroyed it all. Princess Celestia of the universe. To this day, I still remember how he lay in a pool of blood. It seemed that recalling that scene made Luna's heart ache to the point of not being able to breathe. She couldn't help but open her mouth and gasp for air, her limbs feeling somewhat numb. Chapter 22. So tired, don't want to take. Celestia, pinned beneath her, received so much information at once that her mind struggled to process it. What does this mean? She could understand every word, but put together, they made no sense to her. What do you mean? What do you mean? Luna sneered coldly, lowered her head, and bit down hard on Celestia's shoulder in a vengeful manner. In an instant, a sharp pain shot from her shoulder throughout her body. But it also cleared her mind somewhat. That extraordinary brain quickly processed the information it had received. Meanwhile, for Luna, the taste of blood burst forth from her mouth. Just then, the pendant on her chest flashed with light again, and her eyes regained clarity. Disgusting. This was the only feeling she had upon regaining her composure. And she immediately released her bite, distancing herself from Celestia, spitting out the blood in her mouth, as if just coming to her senses. Luna looked down at the angel pendant on her chest. At that moment, the pure white surface of the pendant was stained with spots of blood. Seeing this, her pupils contracted as if she had seen something terrifying. Anxiously, she went to wipe the bloodstains from the pendant, her movements incredibly gentle. On the other side, Celestia had slowly risen from the ground, and the wound on her shoulder was healing quickly due to magic. Looking over at the despondent Celestia, her eyes were filled with guilt. At this point, combining Luna's unusual behavior and the words spoken, she had completely sorted through her thoughts. Although she didn't know if the words carried subjective bias, she was certain that his death was closely related to her, and that he was the one Luna cared about the most. Although Luna didn't know what I would do in the future, I hope you can forgive me, sister. Hearing the word sister, Luna seemed to find it laughable, sneering coldly. Putting away her treasured necklace, her expression returned to the initial mocking look. After that incident, we were no longer sisters. Although her strength was not inferior to Celestia's, she knew this was her home turf. In contrast, Celestia stood alone in space, her gaze complex as she looked at the moon. This scene attracted the attention of many royal guards, but none dared to step forward to inquire. For Celestia was different from her usual self, wearing a harmonious smile. Instead, her face showed guilt. Even her originally flowing mane hung down, and her head nearly drooped to the ground. Unbeknownst to her, a small purple pony was bouncing towards her. Her name was Ziyue, a student of the Cosmic Princess. And since the Cosmic Princess was busy with official duties, she couldn't always guide her. She could only provide some guidance when she was resting. This was the moment she looked forward to the most, but today would likely disappoint her. Noticing Ziyue's arrival, Celestia forced a smile that was more painful than crying. Sorry, Ziyue, I can't guide you today. Saying this, she ignored the astonished Ziyue and walked toward her room. As soon as the experiment resumed, Garu's left eye turned red while casting magic. Immersed in the analysis of the King of Wisdom, Garu did not notice the hint of cunning in the other's gaze. The King of Wisdom? The reason the King of Wisdom chose to help Luna was that he prioritized Garu above all else. Therefore, after Garu's death, he existed in the world through Garu's magical power. When Luna found him and learned that she wanted to revive Garu, he naturally would help her. In order to change Garu's fate, they reached a small agreement. Based on previous analysis, the biggest reason Garu became that way was that the emptiness in his heart was infinitely magnified after recovering all his memories. Can anyone guess what happened to Garu before his reincarnation? The most effective way to solve this problem is to fill the void with love. The King of Wisdom, who had accompanied Garu for many years, naturally knew who he liked in his heart. He didn't know how to make another person fall in love with someone else, so he could only appear in a supportive role. Just when they locked eyes, a stream of data surged in Luna's eyes. It seemed as if something had eyes and was pulling something from her mind, causing her to feel dizzy. She couldn't help but shake her head. As for the King of Wisdom's analysis, there was only a momentary pause before it returned to normal. Always attentive to the analysis, Garu naturally noticed this, but he didn't care. Instead, he turned his concern to Luna, who was rubbing her head. Sister Luna, are you okay? It's my fault for making you cast so much magic at once, he said, his tone tinged with a hint of grievance. Even he didn't know why. Realizing what had happened, Luna found Garu's grievance somewhat amusing. It was clearly her who was in trouble, yet he was the one feeling wronged. But this side of Garu was really cute. She reached out and rubbed his little head, pretending to sound weak as she said, "My magic is a bit depleted. Garu, do you want to do something to compensate your sister?" Hearing this, he nodded. "Because of my sister Luna, I became like this." So of course I need to compensate her. Upon hearing this, Luna revealed a sunny smile, then bent down. A giant python burst into a cave, causing the natives to recoil in fear. However, the intruder seemed unwilling to let them go, wrapping around them with faster speed and binding them tightly. After a long time, Luna finally moved her lips away from his. Chapter 23. The cute little Garu's face instantly turned bright red. He lowered his head, unsure if it was from shyness or something else. Luna couldn't help but laugh at Galu's adorable appearance. Little Galu, you're really cute, Luna said softly. Galu lifted his head and glanced at Luna, his eyes filled with shyness and anger. He gently bit his lip, trying to hide his embarrassment. Luna, you're such a dummy, Galu stammered in protest. Luna leaned in closer and reached out to gently stroke Galu's cheek. Galu's body trembled slightly as he felt Luna's touch. Even he didn't notice that his heart was filled not only with initial shyness, but also with a sense of happiness. Galu, don't be afraid. Things like this will happen often in the future, Luna said gently. Upon hearing Luna's words, Galu's already flushed face became even redder, and he puffed up his cheeks. After a long while, he angrily exclaimed, Luna, you're a bad egg. Luna was momentarily taken aback, not for any other reason, but because little Galu looked so cute even when scolding her. Thinking this, she couldn't help but hug him tightly. Really, you little guy, even when you're scolding. You're so cute. Let go of me. Let go. Unlike the two horses outside making a ruckus, the wise king, silently absorbing all information, flashed an unusual light that went unnoticed by anyone. This light was like a shooting star in the night sky, brief and dazzling, yet unknown to others. It seemed to signify that some change was quietly occurring. With the flash of this light, the wise king began to act. It quickly erased the previous growth plan it had set for Galu. Those carefully designed steps and goals were completely wiped away in that moment. In their place was a brand new, grander plan. This plan was no longer limited to the current time and space, but combined information from the future and a preliminary understanding of Luna's altered fate. Everything she experienced would influence the direction of the future, and this change was irreversible. Therefore, the wise king needed to reassess Galu's growth path and make adjustments based on the new situation. In this new plan, Galu would face more challenges and opportunities. He needed to constantly break through himself and exceed his existing limits to adapt to this unpredictable world. At the same time, the wise king would provide him with more guidance and support to help him better cope with various difficulties. In summary, this new plan would lead Galu into an unknown realm, allowing him to explore his own path in this mysterious world. All of this stemmed from the wise king's insight into the future and a profound grasp of Luna's altered fate. Before this, it had to obtain all aspects of Galu's authorization in advance. It was unclear how long had passed, but Galu suddenly felt a violent shaking in this space. He blinked in confusion, a strong sense of unease rising in his heart, and he instinctively leaned closer to Luna. Noticing Galu's actions and expressions, Luna's displeased gaze, which had been caused by the shaking of the space, instantly softened. She gently reassured him, Don't worry, it's okay. It's just that this dream is about to end. Dream? Galu asked in confusion. Yes, sister, I am the dream managing unicorn, and since I'm too busy with work, I can only meet little Galu in the dream. Luna explained with a smile. So that's how it is, Galu nodded thoughtfully, but for some reason, he felt an indescribable sense of loss deep in his heart. Luna keenly sensed the change in Galu's emotions. She smiled and patted Galu's head, comforting him. All right, don't be sad. You should wake up from the dream now. After saying this, Galu's consciousness instantly plunged into darkness. He found himself pressed closely against someone, with a pair of hooves shaking his shoulders. Seeing this scene, Galu's eyes revealed a look of confusion, and he didn't react for a moment. He looked at the unfamiliar horse in front of him, filled with doubt and misunderstanding. Who was this horse? Why was it here? A series of questions flooded his mind, but he couldn't find the answers. The other horse. Seeing Galu wake up and staring blankly, couldn't help but feel suspicious. Thinking Galu was still asleep, she shook him harder, trying to wake him up. However, Galu still maintained a dazed expression, as if he had lost consciousness. Just then, Ruru walked into the room and happened to witness this scene. Ruru immediately recognized the one shaking Galu and felt a surge of inexplicable anger. Without hesitation, she rushed forward, grabbing the other horse and stopping her from shaking Galu any further. Beaky, what are you doing? Didn't I say Galu was still napping? Ruru furrowed her brow at the scene. Caught at the scene of the crime, Beaky felt a bit awkward. She scratched her head and tried to explain. He's already awake. I just wanted to help him wake up a bit. Saying this, she put on an innocent smile. However, this explanation did not convince Ruru. She shook her head, indicating she didn't believe Beaky. After all, She had just seen Beaky doing some strange things to Galu. Seeing this, Beaky quickly added, "Really? Look, he's very awake now, right?" She pointed at Galu, hoping Ruru would believe her. However, Ruru still looked at Galu with some concern, confirming that he was really okay. Galu stared blankly at the two of them, seemingly unaware of what had just happened. Finally, Ruru sighed helplessly and said to Beaky, "All right, this time let it go. But next time, you can't do this, or Galu will be scared by you." After finishing this, she sat on the bed and rubbed Galu's somewhat messy mane. Seeing this, Beaky breathed a sigh of relief and then patted Galu's shoulder, smiling as she said, "Ha! Today I ran into Applejack. And then I heard that Ruru adopted a little brother, so I hurried over." Unlike Beaky, who was narrating her experience, Galu looked at her with confusion, completely unaware of what had just happened. Chapter 24, Welcome Party. After Ruru and Beaky's joint explanation, Galu finally understood the situation. "So we're going to a party tonight?" "Yes, that's right," Beaky exclaimed excitedly as she rushed in front of Galu, nodding repeatedly. "Yes, and not only that. I will also invite all the ponies in Ponyville to join and introduce them to you. I believe you will become great friends." Galu shrank back a little, feeling shy, and instinctively leaned closer to Ruru, his voice weak as he said, "Sister." Looking into his pitiful eyes, Ruru felt a bit soft-hearted and tactfully suggested, "Beaky, how about we make this party a bit smaller this time? After all, Galu is still not very familiar with this place." Upon hearing this, Beaky immediately came to Ruru's side, hugging her and conspiratorially said, "Listen, getting Galu to know the ponies in Ponyville will help him adapt to the environment sooner." Hearing this, Ruru thought about it and agreed that it made sense. Meanwhile, Galu, who was blankly watching the two of them loudly conspire, thought to himself, "I feel like I'm being ignored." Looking at the two ponies in front of him, Galu sighed helplessly. It seemed like there was no escaping this situation today. Ruru took a deep breath, trying to calm herself down. She gently patted Galu's shoulder and smiled encouragingly. "Galu, don't worry, the party will be very fun. You can meet many new friends, and everyone will be very friendly." Galu nodded slightly, but still looked a bit nervous. Ruru decided to give him some specific advice to help him feel more confident about the upcoming party. "You can try chatting with other little ponies and share some of your interests and hobbies. Or, if you feel a bit shy, you can first observe what's happening around you and join in on an activity that interests you." Ruru's gentle words eased Galu's tension a little. He looked gratefully at Ruru and softly said, "Thank you, sister. I will try my best." As night fell, the party officially began. Ruru took Galu's hand and walked into the cheerful venue together. Galu cautiously looked around, his eyes filled with curiosity and anticipation. They may have come a little late to comfort Galu. As soon as they entered, Galu was pulled away by Pinkie Pie from Ruru's side and taken to the center of the dance floor, where cheerful music started playing. The little ponies surrounded Galu and started dancing, and at first, he was a bit shy. Just as Galu was dancing happily, a rainbow-colored light suddenly flashed, and Rainbow Dash appeared in the dance floor. She looked at Galu with a friendly smile and extended her hand, inviting him. "Hey, new guy? How about flying a lap with me?" Galu looked at Rainbow Dash in surprise, but soon his longing for the sky made him show an excited expression. He nodded and grabbed Rainbow Dash's hoof. Since the venue was outdoors, Rainbow Dash flew Galu into the air, and they circled and soared above Ponyville. Galu felt the refreshing wind blowing over his body, his heart filled with joy. The little ponies below cheered for them. Only Ruru, hiding in a corner, watched Galu and Rainbow Dash with a worried expression. As the music came to an end, Galu and Rainbow Dash slowly descended to the ground. Galu excitedly said to Rainbow Dash, "That was amazing. Thank you." Halfway through, Galu suddenly stuttered, but Rainbow Dash seemed not to notice. She smiled and patted Galu's shoulder. "No need to thank me. We can fly together again sometime. Now go enjoy the party." Galu nodded gratefully, then shyly scratched his head and quietly asked, "What's your name?" "Her name is Rainbow Dash, and she's also a friend of the sisters." Turning around, Galu saw 4 very beautiful little Maras slowly walking towards them. Accompanying them was Rainbow Dash's somewhat dissatisfied voice. "Hey, Applejack, the introduction should be done by me." "Oh, so what?" Seeing the two of them about to argue, Galu was about to speak up to stop them when he was hugged from behind by Zekra. "All right, little guy, you don't need to worry. They do this all the time." Then she turned to the 2 immature girls who were still arguing. "You two are going to scare the little guy." Hearing this, the 2 exchanged glances and then coldly huffed, turning their heads away as if to show their dissatisfaction. Meanwhile, Ruru quickly took Galu away from Zekra's embrace and carefully checked him from top to bottom, fearing he might have any injuries. Galu couldn't help but laugh. "Ha, that tickles." After confirming that Galu was uninjured, Ruru lightly tapped his little head with a hint of reproach and gently said, No more dangerous things like that in the future, okay? Got it. Just then, Applejack stepped forward to rescue Galu, smiling at Ro-Ro. All right, Ro-Ro. Galu must be hungry now. Ro-Ro hesitated at this but still nodded and said, Galu might really be hungry. After all, he hasn't eaten anything since noon. And it's been so long, he must be feeling hungry. Seeing Ro-Ro not trying to stop them any longer, Applejack immediately took Galu's hand and headed toward the food. Come on, Galu, I'll take you to try the food here. Galu looked gratefully at Applejack and then followed her to the food area. Along the way, they smelled various tempting aromas, and Galu's stomach couldn't help but rumble. Meanwhile, the neglected Rainbow Dash looked at Galu in surprise and couldn't help but mutter to herself. Why do they look like they've known each other for a long time? She quickly scooted closer to Galu and curiously asked, Galu, did you already know each other? Galu was startled by Rainbow Dash's sudden enthusiasm and tilted his head in confusion, saying, yeah, it was Sister Ro-Ro who introduced me to them. Hearing this, Rainbow Dash pouted and looked in Ro-Ro's direction. Chapter 25, Party Prelude. Then Rainbow Dash huffed and turned her head away. Ro-Ro looked a bit helpless and walked over to gently pull on Rainbow Dash's wing, shaking it a few times, and weakly said, sorry. I couldn't take Galu to the sky. Upon hearing this, Rainbow Dash turned her head to look at Ro-Ro, still with a hint of dissatisfaction in her eyes. Pinkie Pie, seeing this, decided to use her ultimate move. She went up and hugged both ponies, then smiled and said, all right, we're all friends here. No need to have a quarrel. Rainbow Dash wasn't really angry. She just wanted to tease Ro-Ro, but unexpectedly, she took it seriously. Fortunately, Pinkie Pie came over at this moment and gave her an out. Rainbow Dash awkwardly pushed the two ponies away. All right, I wasn't really angry. Seeing Rainbow Dash's reaction, Ro-Ro knew she was no longer upset and pulled her and Pinkie Pie to catch up with Applejack. On the other side, Galu was enjoying the food immensely, eating and praising it nonstop. Applejack and Zekara watched him from the side, wearing satisfied smiles. Suddenly, Galu seemed to remember something and looked up to ask, are there other delicious foods here? I want to try more tasty things. Applejack and Zekara exchanged smiles, and then enthusiastically took Galu to other places to continue tasting various foods. Along the way, Galu kept trying new foods, and his appetite seemed insatiable. He followed Applejack and Zekara to a table full of various snacks. Wow, these all look so delicious. Galu exclaimed excitedly. Applejack picked up a donut and handed it to Galu. Try this, it's one of our specialties. Galu took the donut, took a bite, and instantly wore a look of happiness. It's really good. Zekara laughed and said, looks like you really like sweets. Galu nodded. That's right. I love sweet things the most. They continued walking and tasting various foods, and Galu's stomach became rounder and rounder. Finally, Galu contentedly let out a burp. Thank you, sisters, for taking me to eat so many delicious things. I'm so happy today. Applejack and Zekara smiled happily. You're welcome. We'll take you to eat delicious food again sometime. Hey, how can they do this? Pinkie Pie said angrily. I didn't get to recommend my favorite candy to him. She turned and ran to a corner where no one was, bringing out a big bag of candy. Hey, Galu. Pinkie Pie ran in front of Galu, holding up the bag. Look what I brought you. Galu's eyes lit up. Wow, it's candy. Pinkie Pie smiled proudly. These are my favorite candies. I guarantee they're even better than the ones before. Galu couldn't wait to unwrap one and put it in his mouth, instantly getting lost in bliss. How is it? Is it super delicious? Pinkie Pie looked at him expectantly. Galu nodded repeatedly. It's really delicious. Thank you, Sister Pinkie. He patted his little belly and said, but I can't fit anymore. Pinkie jumped up happily, but it seemed she only heard the first half of the sentence. Hee, you're welcome. Remember to come play with me often in the future. I have a lot of delicious food to share with you. After saying that, she stuffed all the candies into Jalu's arms. Yunbao looked at the candies in Jalu's arms, her eyes revealing a hint of dissatisfaction. She flew forward, blocking Jalu's path, and asked jealously, Jalu, do you like eating candy? Jalu looked at Yunbao with some confusion, but still nodded. I like it. Candy is very sweet. Upon hearing this, Yunbao became even more upset, pointing at herself. What about me? Do you like flying with me, or do you like candy more? Jalu was at a loss for how to answer Yunbao's question. He looked at the candies in his arms, then at Yunbao, hesitating. At that moment, Apple Juru came over and added fuel to the fire. Our Yunbao is jealous. Hi, Apple Juru. But turning back, Yunbao relentlessly pressed Jalu. Come on, you have to choose one today. Jalu, feeling a bit scared, scratched his head and said cautiously, can I say I like both? When Yunbao heard this answer, she finally smiled in satisfaction. That's more like it. But then she thought of something, her expression suddenly becoming serious, her brows furrowing as she questioned, then why do you only call them sisters and not me? Upon hearing this, Galu was taken aback. He didn't expect the other party to suddenly ask such a question. Even Ro and Jinqi, who had been quietly following behind, were surprised and exchanged glances, not anticipating that the other would care so much about this title. At the same time, both thought, so she cares about this? Just as Galu was unsure of how to respond, a stream of information flowed into his mind. Galu's eyes sparkled like stars, and he stepped forward, using his soft, small arms to tightly hug Yunbao's slender waist. His little face pressed against her chest, looking up at her with pitiful eyes. Sister Yunbao, don't be angry. I will definitely remember to call you sister next time. Is Sister Yunbao okay? Please don't be angry. Galu's voice was soft, with a hint of a spoiled tone, making one's heart melt upon hearing it. Looking at his pitiful eyes, Yunbao's anger instantly dissipated. In a tsundere tone, she said, all right, I got it. Now let me go? Meanwhile, the scene completely shocked the other four. Apple Jiru, who had been mocking earlier, now looked a bit unhappy, watching Galu hugging Yunbao. What's going on? Even Ro felt a bit jealous, let alone Apple Jiru, who had spent the second longest time with Galu after Ro. It should be noted that her personality was not as soft as Ro's. She immediately stepped forward and pulled Galu into her arms, saying softly, Galu, I'm also nice to you, right? Why do you only act spoiled with Yunbao? Perhaps with the blessing of the Wisdom King's information, Galu immediately understood what she meant. He rubbed his head against her embrace and said softly, I also like sister. Seeing Apple Jiru succeed, Piki and Jinqi quickly followed suit, leaving Ro standing there, confused. Chapter 26. Nightmare time flew by, and before they knew it, the party was nearing its end amid their joyful play and laughter. Everyone felt a bit reluctant to leave, but understood that happy times are always short. Finally, the party concluded in a warm and harmonious atmosphere. Galu, do you know? I loved watching the stars at night when I was little, Ro said softly. Really? Does sister have a favorite star? Galu asked curiously. Ro smiled and pointed to the brightest star in the sky, saying, that star is like my guardian angel. Every time I see it, I feel very safe. Looking at Ro's gentle smile, Galu inexplicably felt a desire to express himself. I can be your guardian angel too, he said earnestly. Ro smiled with appreciation upon hearing this, but she didn't take it to heart. She lowered her head and softly said, thank you, Galu. As they walked together, chatting and laughing, the atmosphere gradually became warm, sharing what they had seen and heard that evening. After a simple wash-up, Ro reminded Galu to go to bed early. Naturally, Galu obediently jumped onto the bed, moving lightly and quickly like an agile cat. Meanwhile, far away in a luxurious villa in Cantrelot, a beautiful girl was completing her study tasks for the day. She sat at her desk, seriously reading a thick book. Sunlight streamed through the window onto her, illuminating her delicate features. Finally, she closed the book, stretched, and then walked to her bedroom. She lay on the bed, closed her eyes, and the knowledge she learned today floated in her mind. She knew that only through continuous effort could she realize her dreams. However, it was unfortunate that she couldn't ask Princess Universe questions in the afternoon. As night fell, moonlight spilled through the curtains onto her face, creating an exceptionally tranquil scene. She gently closed her eyes, her breathing gradually stabilizing as she entered a sweet dream. However, at that moment, a mysterious phenomenon occurred. A purple butterfly, shining with a strange light, quietly appeared in the room. This butterfly was not an ordinary creature, but one formed from pure magical energy. Its wings sparkled with a purple glow, as if containing endless mysteries and power. Remarkably, this butterfly seemed capable of transcending the barriers of time and space, ignoring the limitations of the physical realm. It fluttered gracefully, finally landing beside her pillow, quietly gazing at her sleeping face. At that moment, everything around them was enveloped in silence, and no one noticed the arrival of this magical butterfly. After an unknown amount of time, the butterfly gradually dissipated, transforming into a stream of light that entered the girl's horn. On a vast, desolate land, two armies were facing each other. One side consisted of ponies in silver-white armor, their eyes firm and full of fighting spirit, their armor shining brightly, as if declaring their courage and determination to the world. They were neatly arranged in formation, forming a solid defense line, ready to face any challenge. The other side was made up of skeleton ponies, also clad in armor, their bodies composed of bones, exuding a chilling aura. Their eyes flickered with eerie light, as if mocking the weakness of their opponents. These skeleton ponies moved swiftly, like ghosts traversing the battlefield, giving off an elusive feeling. Standing on a high platform, she looked past her own army towards the distant enemy. Her gaze was ambiguous, filled with worry, concern, and deep guilt. She stood there on the high platform, faintly able to see a similar high platform across from her. On it, a glimmer of platinum was vaguely visible, as if it were a mysterious presence, making it difficult for her to see clearly. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew up, making her figure unstable. Her hooves instinctively grasped the railing tightly to steady herself. The wind grew stronger, quickly turning into a fierce storm. Her soldiers struggled in the wind, while the skeleton ponies across seemed unaffected, standing solidly in place. As the storm intensified, countless black whirlwinds swept toward her from the sky. She was taken aback and quickly cast a spell in an attempt to resist. However, these whirlwinds were exceptionally powerful, and her magical attacks had little effect. Just as she began to feel despair, the scene before her suddenly changed. She seemed to be in a magnificent hall, adorned with golden decorations and dazzling lights that made the whole scene appear incredibly luxurious. In the center of this hall stood a small pony, but its appearance was unclear, as if shrouded in a layer of mist. This small pony was surrounded by a group of similarly indistinct ponies. They seemed to be accusing something fiercely, but she couldn't hear their words clearly, only sensing a tense and angry atmosphere. However, the small pony, whose appearance was indistinct, was desperately trying to explain, its voice revealing a sense of grievance and helplessness. "That wasn't me. Why don't you believe me?" The pony's voice cracked with tears, filled with despair and helplessness. "They are framing me." The pony continued to argue, trying to make the other ponies understand its innocence. She wanted to step forward to ask, but as soon as she took 2 steps, she felt her vision lowering. She looked at her change in surprise, not knowing what had happened. But before she could think, the next moment she found herself in a study. She was sitting in a chair, tutoring a pony that was obviously slightly shorter than herself. However, this time she immediately noticed the platinum-colored flowing mane. Looking around in confusion, she realized she was in an unfamiliar environment. The room was filled with books and stationery, and a painting hung on the wall. There was a moment of daze in her mind, as if she had lost consciousness. As the sound of footsteps gradually approached, the familiar platinum figure appeared before her. She struggled to lift her head and looked at the figure, but the light was too dazzling for her to see the other's face or expression. All she could see was the other's mouth moving, seemingly saying something. However, she couldn't hear those words clearly, as if an invisible force was obstructing her hearing. Yet she could distinctly feel the iron chains tightening around her like a cold, venomous snake, making it almost impossible for her to breathe. Suddenly, she woke up from the dream, gasping for air like a horse drowning, desperately taking deep breaths. Chapter 27. An ordinary day in the morning, Galu, like a sleepy little lazy cat, finished a night of studying and groggily crawled out of bed. He stood in front of the mirror in the bathroom, looking at himself. Although his mane was a mess, he didn't care about that, and just silently stared at his reflection. Using magic, he turned on the faucet, letting the cold water wash over his hooves. He closed his eyes, feeling the coolness of the water, as if it could wash away all his fatigue. Then he picked up his toothbrush, squeezed on toothpaste, and began to brush his teeth carefully. Each brushing was a pleasure, feeling the refreshing minty flavor blooming in his mouth, giving him a sense of freshness. After washing up, he dried his face with a towel and then tidied his mane in front of the mirror. Although it was still somewhat messy, he felt much more energetic. He took a deep breath, walked out of the bathroom, and prepared to welcome the new day. When he went downstairs, Roro had just finished preparing breakfast, and as she looked up, she saw Galu coming down the stairs. She smiled, her eyes filled with warmth and anticipation. Galu walked down the stairs with a light step, and upon seeing Roro, his face immediately blossomed into a brilliant smile. He quickened his pace and ran straight toward Roro. Roro skillfully opened her arms to welcome the little guy rushing toward her. Galu flew into Roro's embrace like a joyful little bird. Feeling the warmth of Galu, who was like a little sun in her arms, Roro's heart surged with warmth. She held Galu tightly, as if wanting to convey all her love to him. Galu nuzzled against Roro in her arms, enjoying this warm moment. His eyes sparkled with happiness, and a sweet smile hung on his lips. Since the party ended, Galu seemed to have become more dependent on Roro. He often acted like a spoiled little baby, enjoying snuggling in her arms, seeking her comfort and companionship. However, this behavior of being spoiled was limited to Roro and a few other sisters. In front of others, Galu still maintained an obedient and understanding image. Roro gently stroked Galu's hair, her eyes filled with affection. She knew that deep down, Galu had a sensitive and soft heart that needed more love and care. Unknowingly, Galu's status in her heart had also risen sharply. After a moment, Roro carried Galu to the dining table. "All right, it's time for breakfast." Upon hearing this, Galu ate his breakfast leisurely, occasionally looking up to smile at Roro. Seeing Galu's adorable appearance warmed Ro-Ro's heart. After finishing breakfast, Galu contentedly burped and then snuggled up next to Ro-Ro. Ro-Ro smiled and patted Galu's head, saying, "Okay, little one, go play now." Galu nodded and helped Ro-Ro start clearing the table, making Ro-Ro feel particularly joyful witnessing it all. Unintentionally, her melodious voice, like a golden oriole, rang out. "Do you have any plans for today?" Galu rested his chin on his hand, a serious expression of contemplation on his face, and after a while, he spoke. "In the morning, I plan to go to the library to read, and then wait for Sister Jinchi to come find me for a photo shoot. As for the afternoon, I'm going to play with Sister Yunbao." Photo shoot? Upon hearing this word, Ro-Ro couldn't help but feel curious and quickly asked, "What kind of photos?" "Well, the thing is, Sister Jinchi hopes I can be her model and take a couple of photos to display in the store." "Is that so?" Ro-Ro nodded, not paying much attention. After bidding farewell to Ro-Ro, Galu went out the door, his steps light and cheerful, as if filled with an eager mood. He walked toward the library, his heart full of anticipation. Along the way, he encountered many familiar faces, and those adorable little ponies greeted him warmly. The system activated the daily lottery. With the command given, a crisp notification sound rang out. Ding. The daily lottery is about to begin. Since the morning after that banquet, when he woke up from his dream, he was surprised to find that he had completed a task called ManeSix without knowing when. This left him puzzled, but with rewards. It was foolish not to take them. The mysterious task reward was the opening of the daily lottery page. Although in the past days, the rewards from each lottery were only an increase of 1 or 5 in all attributes, seemingly insignificant, it was said that little by little, it adds up. At that moment, the familiar notification sound rang out again. Ding. Congratulations, the host has gained an increase of 1 in all attributes. Looks like my luck isn't great today, he thought to himself. Finally, Galu arrived at the library. As he walked through the door, a faint scent of books greeted him. He strolled between the bookshelves, searching for books that interested him. In the end, he picked a book about the history of magic, found a quiet corner, and sat down to read quietly. It should be noted that over a month ago, all the magic recorded in this library, including magical theoretical knowledge, had already been mastered with the help of the King of Wisdom. Time flew by quickly, and soon it was noon. At that moment, Jinchi arrived at the library and found Galu. Because he had already promised Jinchi, Galu followed her to the photography studio without hesitation. The studio was beautifully decorated, with various props and backgrounds that dazzled the eyes. Under Jinchi's guidance, Galu put on a variety of beautiful clothes and posed according to her instructions, resulting in one exquisite photo after another. Each photo showcased Galu's unique charm, revealing his adorable side unintentionally, which fascinated Jinchi greatly. After the shoot, Galu and Jinchi admired the photos together. For a moment, they both felt reluctant to put these photos away. Jinchi looked at the photos in her hands, and an indescribable emotion surged within her. Meanwhile, Galu, who overheard this, blushed slightly and playfully said, "Sister Jinchi." His voice carried a hint of shyness and dissatisfaction, but more so a closeness and reliance on Jinchi. Seeing this, Jinchi quickly waved her hand and spoke in a tone meant to soothe the child. All right. No more talking." The corners of her mouth lifted slightly, and a mischievous and confident glint sparkled in her eyes as she smiled at Galu, completely unaware that she might have said something inappropriate or offensive. Galu, faced with this scene, showed an expression of helplessness, seemingly used to this situation, and could only silently accept it. Chapter 28. An ordinary day prologue. After playing around for a while, Jinchi finally took Galu to the carousel costume shop. Along the way, Galu seemed hesitant to speak, until they reached the entrance of the shop, where Jinchi suddenly found that she could not pull Galu along anymore. Turning around, she saw Galu looking at her with eager eyes. "What's wrong?" Seeing this, Jinchi chuckled and gently ruffled his little head. Galu felt happy at her words, but pretended to be understanding and said, "But I've troubled you a lot already, sister." Jinchi stroked Galu's head and said gently, "It's okay. Galu is so cute. I like you so much. And Sister Ru also asked me to take good care of you." Upon hearing this, Galu's eyes sparkled, and he grabbed Jinchi's hand, smiling and saying, "Then it's settled. I'll stay here with you today." Jinchi couldn't help but laugh at Galu's adorable demeanor. "But sister, you're not lying to me, are you?" A hint of doubt flashed in Galu's eyes, as he had been deceived by Biki countless times for the same reason. Jinchi, knowing what Galu was thinking, smiled slightly and comforted him softly. "Don't worry, this time it's true. When have I ever lied to you?" After thinking carefully, Galu realized that Jinchi had indeed never lied to him. Understanding this, Galu obediently followed Jinchi into the house. As soon as they entered, Jinchi warmly invited him into the living room. However, when Galu offered to help, Jinchi declined him without hesitation and told him to relax in the living room. This surprised and disappointed Galu a bit, but he still followed Jinchi's arrangement and sat quietly on the sofa waiting for dinner to be prepared. After an unknown amount of time, when he was pulled to the dining table, he was astonished to find it filled with a sumptuous feast. There were vegetables and fruit salads, emitting an enticing aroma. Galu's eyes widened in disbelief as he asked, "Did you make all this, sister? I never knew you could cook. And it looks so delicious." Jinchi smiled and explained, "Actually, I just learned to cook recently. I'm glad you like it. Sit down and try it." Filled with gratitude, Galu sat down, picked up a fork, and carefully speared a piece of salad to put in his mouth. "Wow, this is so delicious." Hearing Galu's praise, Jinchi felt very pleased and smiled as she asked, "Really? Then eat more." Galu nodded repeatedly, eating heartily, and soon the food on the table was completely cleared. Jinchi watched Galu eat with great enjoyment, her heart full of happiness and satisfaction. She knew that making her brother happy was her greatest joy. After finishing the meal, Galu patted his round belly and let out a satisfied burp. "Thank you, Sister Jinchi. Today's meal was really delicious." Galu said gratefully, "No need to thank me. As long as you like it, I will make you more delicious food in the future." The afternoon sun poured into the room through the window as Galu stretched and sat up in bed. He yawned, rubbed his eyes, and then decided to visit Yunbao. He walked out of his house, crossed the small town, and arrived at Yunbao's home. Yunbao's house was located on a small hill, surrounded by lush trees and colorful flowers. Galu climbed up the winding path to the top of the hill and finally reached Yunbao's doorstep. Using magic to allow himself to walk on clouds, Galu stepped into Yunbao's home. Originally, her house was not here, but since Galu couldn't fly before, she moved it here for convenience. As soon as he walked in, Galu saw Yunbao soaring through the air, flapping her wings and creating a flurry of sounds. Yunbao was extremely fast, darting across the sky like a flash of lightning. Seeing Galu arrive, Yunbao happily flew over to him. She landed, her face beaming with excitement. "Galu, you're here. Come and see the flying tricks I've learned." Yunbao exclaimed excitedly. Galu smiled and nodded, watching as Yunbao prepared to showcase her new skills. Yunbao soared high into the sky and then performed various difficult maneuvers in the air. She rolled, spun, and dove, demonstrating astonishing agility and technique. Although Galu had seen it many times, he was still deeply impressed each time. "You're amazing, Yunbao. This is truly an incredible performance." Galu provided emotional support at the right moment, but watching Yunbao soar freely in the sky, he felt a sense of envy. "Wow, Sister Yunbao, you fly so well." Galu exclaimed in admiration. "Hee, thanks for the compliment. I still need to practice more to become the best Pegasus." Yunbao said confidently. "Sister Yunbao, can you take me up to the sky with you?" Galu looked at Yunbao with eager eyes. Yunbao hesitated for a moment, as taking Galu up to the sky was not allowed by Ruru, although she had probably flown hundreds of times in the past few months. However, seeing Galu's longing eyes, Yunbao eventually agreed. "All right, but you have to hold on tight to me." Galu jumped up excitedly and quickly climbed onto Yunbao's back. Yunbao spread her wings and soared high, with Galu feeling the wind blowing against him, shouting happily. They flew freely in the sky together, and Galu felt this was his happiest moment. Galu was overjoyed on Yunbao's back, with laughter and joy all around. Suddenly, Yunbao said, "Galu, do you want to go explore Cloud City? It's so much fun there." Galu nodded excitedly. He had always been curious and longing for Cloud City. So, Yunbao took Galu to Cloud City. When they stepped into Cloud City, Galu was deeply attracted by the scene before him. It was surrounded by mist, as if they were in a fairyland. The buildings were unique and beautiful, very different from the towns on the ground. The streets were filled with many adorable little ponies, joyfully running around, bringing life and vitality to the entire city. Galu curiously looked around, his eyes sparkling with excitement. He saw some little ponies flying, which made him very envious. He also wanted to experience the feeling of flying in the air, but unfortunately, he didn't have wings. Yunbao noticed Galu's gaze and smiled, saying, "Don't worry, Galu, I will take you to explore Cloud City properly." She enthusiastically introduced everything about Cloud City to Gallop, including the ancient buildings and delicious food. Unbeknownst to her, a pair of eyes was fixated on them at that moment. Chapter 29, You All Guessed Wrong. Hee. She was a unique existence, completely different from the surrounding Pegasi. She had no wings, but had a horn, with deep blue mane streaked with a hint of pink, as if it were the perfect blend of the starry sky and cherry blossoms. Ziyue had originally come to Cloud City with the Cosmic Princess, but due to the princess's busy schedule, she had to wander alone in this vast Cloud City. Fortunately, the Cosmic Princess had cast a spell on her early on, allowing her to walk freely in the air without falling. She strolled along the streets of Cloud City, feeling the soft clouds beneath her feet as if she were in a dream. She curiously observed everything around her, captivated by the beauty of Cloud City. The buildings here were made of clouds, emitting a faint glow, resembling a fairyland. However, in her heart, there was something that attracted her even more than these. And that was the library of Cloud City. It housed a wealth of books and documents on the history, culture, and science of Cloud City and the entire Ponyland. For a unicorn filled with a thirst for knowledge, it was simply a treasure trove. Moreover, while Canterlot also had some records about Cloud City's history, they were second-hand materials collected from other places. Compared to the original records in Cloud City, they might have omissions or deviations. Therefore, she really wanted to see for herself what precious materials were in the library of Cloud City. Perhaps she could even uncover some secrets that even the Cosmic Princess didn't know. Thinking of this, Ziyue became incredibly excited, wishing she could fly straight to the library of Cloud City to explore. But that was just a thought, and besides, she had no wings. As she was passing an intersection, Ziyue suddenly widened her eyes, unable to believe what she saw before her. The platinum figure that had only existed in her dreams had unexpectedly appeared right in front of her. Ziyue's footsteps became slow and heavy, as if each step carried a weighty heart. She was filled with anxiety and unease, yet strangely, she felt no fear at all. When Ziyue finally reached the figure, she was surprised to find it was a cute unicorn. Yes, that's right, just an ordinary unicorn, not the celestial unicorn from her dreams. Over the past few months, as time passed, the dream had gradually become clearer, and she could even see the other's appearance and understand the ins and outs of everything. It seemed somewhat ridiculous that such consequences arose merely due to others' instigation and distrust. He had once been so well-behaved and understanding. But who would have thought he would end up like this? Back when he was in the Advanced Unicorn Academy, he was such a clingy junior. At that time, the two of them were almost inseparable, as if they were each other's shadows. And Galu, who had skipped grades to enter the Advanced Unicorn Academy, had proven his exceptional talent. In just half a year, he learned nearly 7 years' worth of knowledge and skills that they had, and he could even keep up with Ziyue's pace. It must be said that such talent was truly astonishing, as if heaven had granted him endless wisdom and talent. In terms of understanding magical theory and practical skills, he demonstrated abilities beyond the ordinary. Particularly, ancient magic was one of his strong suits. He conducted in-depth research on ancient magic, mastering many ancient and mysterious magical skills and spells. He could flexibly apply these ancient magics to create astonishing effects, even surpassing some teachers who specialized in teaching ancient magic. His ancient magic was like an ancient inheritance, powerful and precise, with each performance as accurate as a finely tuned instrument, always achieving the expected effect. Whether it was manipulating elements or summoning mysterious forces, he could handle it with ease, showcasing astonishing strength. However, despite his superb magical skills, his deep-seated love for medicine far exceeded his interest in magic. Moreover, Galu even considered switching to the medical profession, which infuriated Ziyue, leading to many quarrels between them. Fortunately, the Cosmic Princess intervened, and Galu obediently stayed in the magic program. Additionally, during his free time after completing his coursework, he received a super cool privilege to audit medical classes. Chapter 30, Princess. The more beautiful things become, the more heart-wrenching it is when they are destroyed. Just like that flower blooming in exquisite beauty, wilting in the wind and rain. Like that brilliant star, suddenly falling from the night sky. Just as that exquisite building turned to ashes in a great fire. These beautiful things gradually disappeared from view, causing immense pain and loss in the heart of the pony. As if the softest part of her heart had been ruthlessly torn apart. Each time she saw these beautiful things depart, it felt like a sharp blade stabbing deep into her heart. She knew all of this was a dream. A prophetic dream, at least that's what she thought. However, when she wanted to tell the Cosmic Princess about these matters, she found herself unable to speak. Whenever she prepared to confide in the Cosmic Princess, a strange suffocating sensation would rise in her throat, as if an invisible hand was tightly grasping her throat, preventing her from making a sound. This further confirmed her suspicion that she seemed to be able to foresee the future, but only related to him. However, such an ability was already enough to shock and excite her. Nevertheless, this ability was not omnipotent. It could only let her see futures related to him. This meant she could not rely on this ability to predict the trends of all events, but had to depend on her own wisdom and judgment to cope with various situations. However, this did not affect her emphasis on and utilization of this ability. On the contrary, she believed this ability could become an important tool to help her better understand him and provide better support and guidance for Ziyue. Faced with such a future, she had once felt lost, But after the confusion came an unwavering determination. She knew that to change that terrifying future, immense effort and patience were required. First, she needed to understand Galup's inner world and find the root of his negative emotions. Then, by establishing a trusting relationship with him, she would warm his heart with love and care, helping him overcome his inner fears and anxieties. Moreover, she needed to guide Galup to learn to view the difficulties in life correctly and cultivate his mindset. Additionally, she had to closely monitor Galup's growth journey, timely identifying and addressing any problems and confusions he might encounter. At the same time, she needed to encourage him to bravely pursue his dreams and fully unleash his potential and talents. Through these efforts, she believed she could help Galup get back on track. Although this path was filled with challenges and difficulties, she firmly believed that as long as there was love and persistence, miracles could be created. Because the Melody Princess had already proven that, hadn't she? Such a future would be changed by her. For the current Galup was still young and had enough time for her to guide him back on track. But this early encounter with Galup made her realize that to change Galup's fate, she needed to take action starting now. She had to give Galup more love and companionship, allowing him to feel warmth and happiness. Meanwhile, perhaps it was because Ziyue had been standing there for too long that it aroused Cloudchaser's suspicion. As she continued to be dazed, Yunbao was about to pull Galu away. Galu looked completely confused. "Sister Yunbao, it's our turn soon." This call also brought Ziyue back from her daze, realizing something was off, and she wanted to stop them from leaving. At that moment, a familiar voice came from behind her, disrupting her steps. The other little ponies who witnessed this scene all bowed and greeted, "Your Highness." Seeing the movement from those around her, the slow Galu hurriedly bowed as well. "What? He won't." "Nonsense. Do you want to know who Luna is?" 135 Magic Theory, 246 Magic Practice, the last day of learning etiquette. Not in a hurry to let them rise, Princess Cosmos instead flitted like a light butterfly past Ziyue and gracefully approached Galu. This scene not only left Ziyue frozen in shock like a statue, but even Princess Yinyun, who had been beside her, was similarly stunned. But thinking about it, the magical aura emitted was indeed as captivating as the brilliant stars in the night sky. Even she, who had been a princess for over 200 years, had never reached such a level. Meanwhile, Galu's attention was completely immersed in the system prompt sound in his mind, which sounded like celestial music. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden task of the 3 princesses of Pony Maria. Reward, 40 system lottery chances. Completely lost in his thoughts, Galu had no idea about the quiet arrival of the other party. He slowly raised his head, just as his gaze met hers. He saw her gently raise her hoof. Like a light cloud, Galu naturally responded, as if he had practiced this countless times, as if they shared a tacit understanding. Little did he know how much shock his actions brought to the surrounding ponies, like a stone thrown into a calm lake, creating ripples. They all observed from the corner of their eyes, and when they saw Galu connect with the princess's hoof, their faces showed surprise, as if they had witnessed the most incredible thing in the world. Moreover, at the moment their hoofs collided, a magical aura that did not belong to Galu began to surge, abruptly interrupting the 2 ponies and forcing them apart. This immediately made Princess Yinyun alert. She unhesitatingly positioned herself in front of Ziyue, adopting a defensive stance. And what about Princess Cosmos? She is Princess Cosmos. Her very presence symbolizes authority and power. Then, an unbelievable scene unfolded. That magical energy actually detached from Galu and gradually gathered before him, finally condensing into a slightly smaller, but still impressive celestial unicorn. Although this unicorn was somewhat inferior in size to Princess Cosmos, the aura it emitted was enough to leave one in awe. Celestia. Her voice was filled with anger, glaring at the celestial unicorn opposite. Seeing this, Celestia took 2 steps back and softly said, "Oh, my sister, why do you look at me like that? You received such a lovely little creature, but you won't let your sister have a look?" She particularly emphasized the word little creature, as if reminding of something important. Realizing the other party's intentions, Luna gritted her teeth and cursed inwardly. Despicable. Chapter 31, Choice. Or you can join the group and speak directly in the group. The author will see the messages in the group. 100-230-0822 on the other side. Galu looked around in confusion. He discovered that since his sister Luna appeared, Luna had unconsciously mixed in some of her personal thoughts and ideas while explaining magic theory, even including her unique exclusive magic, known as authority. This content might be difficult for ordinary ponies to understand, but Galu had a deep understanding of magic principles, thanks to the help of the King of Wisdom. Therefore, Galu did not feel worried or confused. He was just curiously glancing at Yunbao, who was standing still, lost in a dream. He understood the mysteries of magic and knew that this situation would not pose any danger to Yunbao. Meanwhile, Yunbao looked completely bewildered, unaware of what was happening. Galu continued to stand quietly aside, observing, and he saw Luna happily conversing with the mysterious celestial unicorn opposite. He naively thought this was just a friendly exchange between sisters after a long separation. After all, he had learned from Sister Ruru that when others were talking, it was polite not to interrupt easily. So, he chose to stand quietly aside, not disturbing their conversation. Although Inyun and Ziyue were not very clear about the relationship between the two, they could pick up on some things from the conversation. Therefore, among the little ponies who were awake, only Galu was still unclear about the specific situation. At this moment, Galulu's mind was still in a mess, completely unaware of what was happening. It wasn't until Celestia said a slightly threatening remark that Galu realized something was wrong. However, his actions were too quick for Luna to react. In the blink of an eye, Galu was already standing in front of Luna, blocking her. "Hey, what are you doing?" Galulu's eyes widened, staring directly at Celestia, showing no sign of fear. Celestia looked at the brave little guy in front of her and couldn't help but feel a hint of provocation rise in her heart. She smiled and spoke in a gentle tone. "Of course, I'm just chatting with my sister." After saying that, her lips slightly curled up, revealing a barely noticeable smile. She wanted to see what charm this little guy had to make her sister fall for him. Casually sizing him up, she thought, quite cute. But her expression showed no change. "Little guy, do you want to protect her?" Celestia asked slowly. "So what?" His eyes revealed determination and resolution. However, Celestia's next sentence almost made Luna's heart stop. She said with a serious expression, "Even if she is a pony who wants to forever shroud the kingdom in darkness, would you still be willing to protect her?" This sentence pierced Luna's heart like a sharp sword. Luna nervously watched everything, wanting to speak up to stop it. But ultimately, she still halted her actions. She knew this matter would eventually be exposed, and deep down, she actually wanted to know what choice Galu would make. Galu stared unwaveringly into Celestia's eyes, firmly stating word by word, "I believe Sister Luna is not that kind of pony. She must have her own reasons." His tone was filled with trust and persistence. Celestia narrowed her eyes slightly, secretly lamenting how stubbornly adorable this little guy was. However, she did feel a slight admiration for Galulu's courage and belief. In contrast, Luna, who was firmly chosen, was now enveloped in a deep love that made others feel uncomfortable. This love felt like a dark force in an endless abyss, as if it wanted to swallow everything around it. Inyun felt this vague love and involuntarily trembled, a surge of indescribable fear and unease rising in her heart. Seeing Inyun's reaction, Celestia chuckled softly, a glint of cunning light flashing in her eyes. She knew Inyun had sensed something unusual about Luna, but she didn't care. On the contrary, she provocatively looked at Galu, her lips curling up in a disdainful smile. "Even so, how can you protect her? You're just a little unicorn." Celestia mocked, her tone full of disdain, ignoring the stunned Ziyue completely. "Ziyue, so this is how you are, teacher." Upon hearing this, Galu couldn't help but lower his head, feeling a wave of melancholy in his heart. Indeed, with his current strength, he was no match for the two powerful celestial beasts. He was well aware of the huge gap between himself and Celestia and Inyun, and even if he gave it his all, he might not be able to protect Luna. However, at that moment, Galu suddenly remembered the system within him. This mysterious system had helped him through difficult times multiple times, granting him unexpected strength and abilities. With this thought, a glimmer of hope ignited in Galu's heart. "System lottery." Galu silently recited in his mind. He pinned all his hopes on the system, hoping that this lottery would bring him miraculous changes. Perhaps the system would grant him powerful enough strength to overcome the current predicament and protect Luna. At that moment, Galu's heart was filled with trust and reliance on the system. He closed his eyes and silently prayed, hoping the system could once again showcase its miraculous capabilities. At the same time, he began to fantasize about obtaining power comparable to the celestial beasts through the system lottery. As the light flickered, 40 items appeared before Galu, magical items, potions, magic books, and so on. Galu examined them carefully and found that some items seemed to possess special magical power, such as a potion that could enhance magical power and a book containing ancient magical spells. Of course, among them were some special existences like world background completion and mana refinement, etc. But none of these were useful. In the end, he placed his hopes on the King of Wisdom. But the answer ultimately disappointed him. Notification: Galu has great potential, but the current Galu cannot contend against the two celestial beasts.